After 6 months on the championship trail, the Australian touring car title finally reaches Sydney for the concluding rounds of the series. 40 kilometres away from this magnificent harbour, the Sydney Opera House and the hustle and bustle of the downtown area, the rural retreat of Annangrove can be found. This northwestern suburb of Sydney also boasts one of Australia's most successful motor racing complexes, Amaroo Park Raceway. The 1.93 kilometre action track sits in a natural rock amphitheatre. The circuit is hard on both drivers and cars because of its tight and twisting layout. Today, the Australian Touring Car Championship returns to Amaroo after a 7-year absence. Series leader Jim Richards knows the circuit better than most. The BMW All Black, in fact, hasn't been beaten in a round of the domestic Better Break Series all season, and that's bad news for anyone hopeful of springing a surprise on him today. The Group A team is here in force, including Peter Brock and his 2-car Mobile Commodore team, Queensland's laconic Dick Johnson, Kiwi extrovert Robbie Francevic, Alpha Ace Colin Bond, and all the BMW muscle power. The Nissan Turbo Super Series returns after some wild and woolly action at Adelaide last weekend, while all of Amaroo's other action attractions share this afternoon's bill of flair with the Australian Touring Car Titans in the Better Breaks 100.
Hello and welcome on a grey day to Amaroo Park, just in time for the balloon to go up on the start of our telecast, including round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. And the balloon has certainly gone up for Jim Richards. He is not on pole position. He's not even on the front row of the grid. Colin Bond has pride of place. Alongside him on the front row, Dick Johnson. Then comes Jim Richards and Peter Brock. It's going to be a thriller. There's a great support program as well. And Colin Bond is determined to burst the Jim Richards balloon. I just hope nobody bursts mine. Here's Neil Crompton.
Oh, more hot air from Gary Wilkinson again. Goodness me. Yes, indeed. Good afternoon and welcome to Amaroo Park and a big afternoon's motorsport for us this afternoon. Some 3 hours, kicking off with Heat 1, Round 6 of the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge. You can see there Colin Bond in the little ET Turbo standing by and readying himself for the 6 laps around the 2 kilometre odd Amaroo Park course. Dick Johnson will be competing in today's round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, sitting there in car number 7. He's drawn car 7 in this event, and this series now really moving towards a very interesting conclusion in a couple of rounds' time. They'll go to their final round, of course, at Calder later this year. $25,000 in total prize money up for grabs, and they are really playing for keeps. And Michael, just last weekend at the last round of this series, it was on for young and old.
Certainly was, Neil. I think by the time Fred Gibson and the Nissan team have managed to straighten out a few of the panels that were creased rather than caressed, we're going to have another interesting round of it here today. However, as we go through the line, John Bauer in car number 1 will be starting from position 1 in, of course, the first heat. We'll be showing you both heats this afternoon in the 7's exclusive telecast of the Australian Touring Car Championships. Round 9, there's Fred Gibson, Nissan team manager. I think he would have certainly spent a lot of time this week supervising the mechanics and the body men to straighten out the Nissans after the Adelaide connection last weekend.
Yeah, just 7 days to get all these cars up and running again. A dozen of them in total. And as we've mentioned before, all in pretty well stock standard trim. They have a roll bar and a safety harness. They've got the exhaust plumbed out the side of the car. Standard radial tyres. As we look there at Peter McKay, a motoring journalist behind him, Alan Grice, the man who is second in this series at the moment with 204 points. In fact, he's behind George Fury, the Nissan Works driver, with 211 points. There's Gary Scott down from Queensland, whom we've seen in the Armstrong Nissan competing in the Sports Sedan Series in the last couple of meetings. Gary at present is back in around about 7th or 8th with 175 points. And the man who leads the Australian Touring Car Championship, drawn car number 6 in the Nissan Challenge. And Richards, in fact, has moved up to 3rd place in this series with a total of 203 points. He, in fact, shared a win last weekend in Adelaide with Alan Grice. So a little sample of the field will be competing. So it's going to be very, very interesting. John Bauer, of course, has been performing very strongly. He's dropped back a little bit in points, though, in this last couple of rounds and now has about 195 points, just 2 behind Colin Bond. So as they prepare to come out of the pit lane, we might have a look at the way they'll line up now for this first of the 2 heats that we'll be covering this afternoon. And from position number 1, John Bauer has drawn the number 1 car. Alongside him, George Fury. On the 2nd row of the grid, Peter McKay alongside Alan Grice. The 3rd row of the grid, Gary Scott from Queensland, sharing with Australian Touring Car Championship leader Jim Richards. Behind him, Dick Johnson, car number 7. Alongside him, an arch rival from way back, Colin Bond. Row 5 consists of Gary Rogers and the young Glenn Seaton, and rounding out the top dozen, Steve Masterton and rally champion Jeff Portman.
Tell you what, you can put the boot in, Crompton, but it's a great view from up there in that balloon, and a great view of the crowd. By gee, they're packed in here today. Despite the weather, which certainly didn't look promising early today, hasn't improved all that much either, but it hasn't stopped the people coming in for round 9 of the Touring Car Championship. They've also come out, I think, to see Kevin Bartlett in this Di Tommaso Pantera that he's running in the sports sedan and GT race this afternoon, and it really is a very slick machine, as you'll see. And
they've probably come out to have a look at you, Wilco. In the last few weeks, you've been in canoes, helicopters, aeroplanes, racing cars. I mean, you're becoming a bit of an attraction at these meetings.
Talking about racing cars and Kevin Bartlett, as we just were, Bartlett held the outright lap record here for a long year until it was broken last meeting by John Bowe in a Formula Mondial car. And here's Johnny Bowe coming out on pole position in the Nissan Turbo. So it's a bit of a change of pace for him.
Indeed.
The first race, our Nissan race, running a couple of minutes late and getting underway due to car number 81 from the previous event. Emitting in the Division 2 sports sedans, lost its hood in the approach to Dunlop Loop, so they've had the trucks go out and pick up the machine, and it's been brought back to the pit area now. So we should have the all clear and the Nissans out for the first of their 2 heats here this afternoon. Yes, as you mentioned before, very, very big crowd in attendance at Amaroo, biggest of the season for the Touring Car Championship. Amaroo, of course, an Aboriginal word, which means water over rocks.
We might get some of that.
And I tell you, we might get some this afternoon.
And talking again about the crowd, Mike, this augurs really well, I think, for the 300 Enduro coming up on August 4 here at Amaroo. The excitement in Group A racing that's been generated in its first full season in Australia in 1985 is really building to a fever pitch. The Touring Car Championship has set the scene and will continue to do so today here at Amaroo and at Amaroo Park next Sunday. And then, of course, gets set for the big Enduros, commencing back here with the Breda Breaks 300 on August 4, and all leading up, naturally, to the James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst in October.
Well, the tender vehicle coming down through Honda Corner. Drivers are ready to come out onto the circuit now for the Nissan Super Challenge. Neil's already gone through the grid for you. An important day for Alan Grice, who has dominated the series for quite a number of rounds, and he's drawn exceptionally well in the first heat, starting from position 4 in car number 4. Knows this circuit very well, runs a driver educational school here at the circuit, so I don't think anyone knows the track better than Grice. Might have to put that to good use in the upcoming 6-lapper. Then, of course, the grid positions will be changed around for the latter 6-lapper. So if you start off the pole in Heat 1, you start off the back in Heat 2.
I just noticed driving out onto the track to take part in this race, Steve Masterton, and it's the only view we'll be getting of Steve today in the Nissan Turbo Series, because he's not running his Commodore in today's round of the Touring Car Championship. It is in pieces, in fact, in the process of being rebuilt. They're so dissatisfied with the performance of the car in the rounds that they've run so far, and with a view to Bathurst coming up not too far from now, they've had the car right down to the last nut and bolt to do a major rebuild.
Well, hopefully we might be able to pick them up at our next telecast, of course, which is 1 week away. And that's round 10, the grand final, the Castrol final of the Australian Touring Car Championship from Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. In the meantime, cars coming through Camalco Corner prior to lining up and taking the flag for the 6-lapper. And the amount of prize money on offer for the Nissan Series, I think it just about rivals every other series in Australian motorsport. Certainly a lot healthier.
I've noticed this morning, Michael, the smiles gradually starting to disappear off the faces of some of these drivers as they think about the business end of this championship. As I said before, $25,000 in total prize money and a Nissan Skyline, $13,000 for second, $10,000 for third, $6,000 and $4,000, so on down the line. So it's a healthy reward. And John Bowe.
Any one of 6 drivers, I think, can still win it, can't they?
Yes, indeed. Well, there's 30 points up for a win in this one, 27 for second, 24 for third, and it goes right back down to 12th place.
So it's really
10 points.
Fury, Grice, Richards, Johnson, Bond and Bowe.
Indeed. 30 seconds now remaining prior to the start of our first heat in today's coverage. and 6 laps will be the total journey. On the front row, John Bowe, alongside him George Fury, and right behind Peter McKay and Alan Grice.
There's a lot of words went under the bridge there.
10 seconds away from the start of Heat 1 this afternoon of the Nissan Super Series from Sydney's Amaroo Park. Flag is down, and Bowe getting away very, very smartly indeed. Going with him is Fury on the outside. And Alan Grice moving up very, very quickly here on the outside of Peter McKay as they head up the hill for the first time. Gary Scott dropping in behind them. Then Richards making the break. Johnson going with him too as they go to the top of Nissan and now drop into the right-hander.
Fury and Bowe, door handle to door handle.
Oh, there's one going through there on the inside. That was like
Peter McKay.
And Grice keeping the pressure on them too as they come out of that corner, heading down now towards Mazda for the first time. And
Grice has got up to second.
Yes, got through that corner very, very quickly indeed. So Grice with a few points to try and make up here today at Amaroo Park. Bowe, though, is your race leader as they come down to the left-hander for the first time with Grice in hot pursuit. Fury is the next one through, followed by McKay.
Gary Scott next. He's got a great start, but seemed to lose it going up over the top of the hill and didn't improve on his 5th spot off the starting line. And Bowe survived the early struggle with George Fury and now has to hold off Alan Grice.
Coming up for the completion of the first lap, 5 still to go, and across the line, Bowe the leader from Grice, Fury, McKay and Gary Scott, then Richards and Dick Johnson. Here's the pressure now. It's McKay at the top of the hill, still holds down 3rd. Grice looking for the right approach here on John Bowe. Certainly the inside run coming down this part of the racetrack. Bowe using the width of the circuit, going all the way up, but starting to close the ground up now. And Grice will be through here very, very quickly if Bowe leaves the door open. Honda corner is the next one up. Grice sits in, tucks in, looks for a run down the outside. There was one almost up on 2 wheels that time.
Gary Scott.
And there's 2 that have got off on 1 wheel. Number 9 also with problems was Gary Rogers, and 11 joining him is Steve Masterton. Meanwhile, back in front, coming out of the lake corner, John Bowe resisting every attempt thrown at him so far by Alan Grice, Fury and McKay. That's the top 4. Cross the line now for the completion of 2 laps and 4 to go.
Peter McKay does a pretty good job in these races, doesn't he? More than holds his own.
Excellent. Up Bitchapave Hill again. There's Alan Grice, still stalking John Bowe in car number 1. And the racetrack that Grice puts more pressure on these youngsters that aren't so familiar with it. Through the turn and down towards Mazda corner again. Actually, that gap's open just a little bit. Bowe over Grice. And then quite a scrap going on for 3rd.
And George Fury just barely hanging on to that 3rd spot at the moment in the red and white car. John Bowe managing to hang on here quite nicely, and as you suggested before, Michael, that there's probably nobody out there who's as quick as Alan Grice in an ET Pulsar, having driven one of those cars around here for lap after lap in his advanced driving course.
Gary Scott giving Peter McKay a little nudge in the back as if to tell him to hurry up. He wants to go quicker. They'll all have to go a bit quicker if they want to reel in Bowe and Grice at the head of the field. George Fury still holding down 3rd ahead of McKay, Scott, Bond.
Johnny Bowe and Grice looking good at the moment. Nothing too much has changed, although
Here's McKay.
So Dick's moving up as well. He was back with Richards and Bond a couple of laps back.
Here comes the 4 having the great scrap. Fury, McKay in there, Scott. And of course Johnson making the move as well. Out of Dunlop Loop and down towards Mazda corner again. Nothing's changed up front. 2 leaders go through. Maybe Grice marginally closer this time to Bowe as they come down towards the left-hander at Honda corner. And then the second group comprising of those 4 cars. Oh, and they're putting the... Whoops.
Oh, Gary Scott. He's made up a place.
It's an interesting way of doing it.
Well, here's Johnson now making his run down on the outside of Peter McKay, driving car number 7. He'll go in there as deep as he can and then try and pull back on the inside coming out of the turn. It's good if you've got a little more horsepower to play with, but they're so close, these cars. Forced to duck in again and get the wind assistance up the straight, but he's keeping the pressure on McKay. almost touching the wall there as they come out of the bend. Still a couple of laps left to run, heading up Bitcher Pave Hill again. Bow, Grice, closer this time to the Dunlop loop.
Actually, John Bow's doing a great job of getting the Pulsar sideways. They are notorious understeerers, and he's doing a very handy job of manhandling it around the top of the loop. Must have figured out something that the others haven't.
Grice looks a little closer this time. Very close to Bow, picking up the back wheel too as they come out of Honda Corner.
Well, the only way Grice is going to get by is if Johnny Bow makes a mistake, and he hasn't looked like doing so thus far.
He's got to get close enough to him, though, to be able to pressure him. And by close enough, I mean almost in the back of the car.
1 lap remaining.
Oh, little tangle back there behind. Fury's been involved in it. Looks like McKay has as well. Richards has got himself up involved with it, and Johnson might just be ahead of them. How close are they? John Bow leading up Bitcher Pave for the final time, and Alan Grice getting very close indeed. Dick Johnson has made it up to third.
I don't know how he did that.
There was obviously that little scuffle down at the lake corner. And now coming out of the loop for the final time, John Bow has done one heck of a job so far, but he'll have to close this racetrack up. Grice is quick through here and really getting it sideways coming out of the bend. Downing going to make the big charge under brakes. Oh, Gricey.
Oh, come on, Johnny Bow.
Oh, he set Grice off, and I think there's going to be big trouble over that one. Number 5 is raging up quickly. Gary Scott taking a run on Grice as they come down to the lake corner for the final time to the right-hander.
Johnson's back to 4th, Bow 3rd, Scott 2nd, pressuring Grice for the lead.
There goes the bumper bar off the back of Grice's car as Gary Scott gets stuck into the back to Wonderlick Corner for the last time. An amazing conclusion to this 6th lapper. I think it'll be Grice. Gary Scott nudges the wall. The checkered flag out. Grice the winner. Scott 2nd. John Bow 3rd. Dick Johnson 4th. Peter McKay, George Fury, Jim Richards, Colin Bond, Glenn Seaton. Goodness me.
Well, the president of the ARDC showing them the quick way around the racetrack here today. Don't know whether he's going to get too many memberships with the tactics in the final corner. Let's take a recap. Alan Grice, the winner at this stage. 2nd place goes to Gary Scott. And 3rd, luckily, is John Bow.
Well, back here at Amaroo Park, I'm having a real ball. Yes, this is Dick Johnson's Mustang, and yes, he must be crazy to let me behind the wheel. But I can tell you what, you sure get a different perspective of the racetrack from the driver's seat, especially here at the tight Amaroo Park circuit. And I'm only doing 80 or 90 Ks. You can imagine what it's like for Dick Johnson at top speed. In fact, why don't we take a lap of the circuit with Dick? It must keep him busier than a one-arm paper hanger.
Thanks, Wilco. Well, this is Amaroo Park in Sydney, out in the beautiful Anning Grove area, which is just northwest of Sydney. And this is Bitcher Pave, over the top of Bitcher Pave, to where we have these lovely tyres painted like a zebra crossing. That must be where the animals cross at night. Round the loop. You're in 3rd gear, up to 4th, coming down to a very fast right-hander. Real fun. Let the car run right out, come down to almost a dead stop corner, back to 3rd gear. Very important to get out of here quick because the next corner is a boomer. A dead stop corner. Straight back to 2nd gear, turn and hard into the throttle. Get a fast run out of there is super important. Now for the run onto the straight, the right-hander, let it run right out towards the Armco. And that's Amaroo Park in Sydney.
Thank you, Dick Johnson, as the field prepares in the dummy grid area at the moment for round 7 of the Goodyear Car and His Club Laces Series. It'll be held over 8 laps. And again, much like the Nissan Pulsar Series, we're moving to a very, very interesting portion with the 2nd last round to come at Oran Park next weekend, and then the final back here at Amaroo on August the 1st. The man who leads the series at the moment is Ken Douglas with 50 points, Peter Dane 2nd with 41, Mark Gibbs 3rd with 38, and Mark Scaife in 4th with 37. So you can see they're fairly tightly bunched in terms of points. They're also fairly tightly bunched on the grid. Let's have a look at it now. And on the front row of the grid is David Brabham, car number 43. Alongside him, Mark Gibbs in car number 13. The second row of the grid, Peter Dane, car 41. Alongside him is John Giddings, car number 39. On the third row of the grid, Gary Cook, car number 88, and Phil Alexander, car 35. Behind him is Jones, car 77, Richard Mork, the man alongside him in the red car number 9. The next row consists of Spencer and Gardner, cars 80 and 10, and behind them Clinton and Robinson, 31 and 24. So they are the top 12, determined by their finishing order of the first heat, which was held earlier on today. And in fact, it was pretty exciting stuff. We might take a look at some of the action that consisted in that first heat of some dramatic motor racing. So, pretty wet conditions. The first man down and out, car number 19, was Graham Blanche. Yes, the front missing off the Ford Laser. Then, across the top of the mountain, it was Ken Douglas who got all out of shape. And it was Scaife who said, thank you very much, but I don't really want to park this way. A real hazard to the health. Coming out of the right-hander at the late corner, car number 31, out of shape, John Clinton in the black car. And then Shane Prest took the left-hand side off the Ford Laser. David Brabham, car number 43, the man who'll lead them away in the second heat. And if it's half as exciting as the first one, Gary, it'll be a beauty.
Well, a couple of cars missing from this lineup, I can tell you now. But Brabham really did it well and survived an awful lot of pressure in that earlier heat today. And if he can do the same again, then he really has come a fair way in motor racing in the last 12 months, because Mark Gibbs is a man, and this is him, who's renowned for his muscle tactics on the circuit. No, it's true.
You're right.
And he really served it up to Brabham in that earlier preliminary event, and I think you'll find that he's going to try and do it again. And the safest way out for Brabham is to put his foot down and be the quickest away, and to try and hold the lead throughout, because the pressure will be severe if Gibbs can get close to it.
For Brabham, it's been fairly topsy-turvy. Oh, and there's the back of Shane Williams' car. Look at that. Back left-hand side of the Laser without a rear window by the look of it, with now just less than 30 seconds to go before the start. I was about to say that Brabham's had a fairly topsy-turvy run in this series, including really knocking around the car at Amaroo Park 2 meetings ago. And this by far is his best performance so far in the series. 10 seconds now remaining before the start. 8 laps the journey, round 7 of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Series. Revs build. National flag dropped, and Gibbs makes a very good jump alongside him. Brabham, Peter Dane comes up as well, side by side to the top of Bitchapay for the first time. Richard Mork, car number 9, getting in there as well. And goodness me, drama already. Shane Williams makes advantage out of that and moves up about 4 spots, but it's Brabham in second. Mark Gibbs comes down the outside for first. Peter Dane in third. I think the next man then would have been 39, perhaps John Giddings.
Peter Dane and Mark Gibbs are the two who can benefit most from this race as far as the overall series is concerned, currently in second and third placings in the series. And of course, series leader Ken Douglas is missing from the lineup, having been one of the victims of the earlier event.
Down to Honda Corner for the first time, and the run to the lake. Brabham missing out on the start, has dropped into second spot, and he's holding that well over Dane as they come down to the lake corner, the right-hander. And the first one through is going to be Mark Gibbs. Underneath our speed camera, see how close some of these cars travel to the concrete wall here, particularly some back in the middle stages of the pack. So out of that corner, then of course back across the line, heading up the hill again. Number 13, Mark Gibbs, will lead, with Brabham now starting to put the pressure on, and they're going to make it 3 wide over the top as they drop into Dunlop Loop. Here's Gibbs. Brabham has won the lead back. Yes, he has. Some good driving there from young David Brabham through the corner, but he's left the gate open there. You could put a Mack truck through.
Well, they almost put 2 through.
And he's caught 1 out, but he's going to race Gibbs down here on the outside.
He's a brave boy.
There's not much room there if you go off the course.
It's going to pay off, though.
No, it's not. Oh. And Brabham finding the quick line through the rough, and I think he might beat them to the corner. Here he comes. Oh. That's the fast line around Amaroo Park.
Oh, no.
Hasn't dropped a spot. Something Dad taught him. Just ask Jack. Coming down to the lake. And kept control of that car rather well. Unorthodox, but he kept control of it. And once again, they come back in the run to Wunderlich Corner, where obviously Gibbs is going through. Giddings has made his way up, probably up to about third at this stage, and Brabham's still hanging in there.
Oh, goodness me, he did drop a spot after all that, but it wasn't a bad piece of work, was it, to keep control of the car and to get back on the racetrack. Mark Gibbs, the leader, Peter Dane in second spot, John Giddings, David Brabham, and then Phil Alexander.
Gibbs and Dane now get at it.
Second and third, respectively, in the championship. Dane with 41, Gibbs with 38 points.
This is where the fight is going to be for the major slice of points for round 7.
Gibbs a very, very aggressive 28-year-old.
Brabham's not giving up without a fight. He's got back to third place. Gave John Giddings what for as he went past. He's got a lot of ground, though, to make up on Gibbs and Dane. Coming down to the late corner once more. Gibbs a length and a half ahead of Peter Dane, and a fair stretch then, about 45, 50 metres to David Brabham on the main straight once more.
He's got a long way to make up, but that's not to say Gibbs and Dane aren't going to get involved in something here. They like to race it fairly close.
Dane has a go over the top of the hill. No, discretion's the better part of it.
Gibbs hangs in there, puts the front wheel over the ripple strip.
Awful close to those concrete-filled tyres, too.
Yes. It manages to hold the lead. Car number 13 getting it up on 2. Coming down to Mazda corner. Dane trying everything to get on equal terms with him. That's where Brabham went off the last time round. Dropping into the left-hander now at Honda corner.
Well, Brabham's getting closer again in third place, and Giddings behind him in fourth. And there seems to be some newfound form in the Brabham camp. Car 43, absolutely flying, and you can visibly see him starting to close the gap now into the back of Peter Dane.
John Giddings still in fourth place on the racetrack, followed by Phil Alexander and then Gary Cook in car 88. 13's the man up front. Mark Gibbs.
Gibbs the leader, Dane, Brabham, then Giddings. Here's the charge on the outside, driver of car number 41.
He's got this time, Dane.
See if Gibbs comes back on the inside of him. No, not enough room for that. Now Dane will have to hold that inside line coming out of the corner.
He does it more successfully than David Brabham did a couple of laps earlier.
So the order now reads Dane over Gibbs, with Brabham still closing on the pair of them, and Giddings back in fourth.
Gee, Gibbs is doing a good job in second place at the moment. As you said before, Gary, a very forceful driver, but he's done some thinking about it in the last few meetings, and he's really well positioned now in this round 7. Right in behind Peter Dane. Brakes at the last possible moment. The two of them still maintain the same gap, but again, as we look a little bit further back for third place, you'll see Brabham come into shot here in the black car number 43. John Giddings behind him in 4:39.
With 3 laps to go, can they make ground on the leading pair? That's the question.
Well, Dane has edged away just a little from Gibbs to the top of Skyline. There's the gap. And Brabham all the time is making up a couple of centimetres per lap. He still has it to do. But out of Dunlop, once again heading down towards Mazda corner, Dane in front and opening all the time over Gibbs and Brabham. The radial's getting a good working out here in the Goodyear Car Owners Club Lacer Series. To the late corner again, and Gibbs a little closer to the right-hander. Here he closes under brakes. Both identical line coming out of that corner, and there's Brabham still there. So that excursion off the track cost him dearly. Cost him 1 place, but a lot of ground. Giddings goes through. They're the front-running 4, with a couple of laps still to run.
Yes, 2 to go, Mike. And Peter Dane really is doing it quite comfortably now. Gibbs, as you said, does close up through the corners under brakes, but really just doesn't seem to quite have the same straight line speed as Dane, and therefore Dane is able to clear out, as you can see there, by about 2.5 car lengths, and that's really quite comfortable driving for him. To apply the pressure, Gibbs needs to be right on his bumper. He gets close under these circumstances. But once they straighten up, Dane again draws away. And in fact, Gibbs didn't close up through the lake corner that time.
Should have the last lap board out this time as they come through Wonderlick Corner, and there it is, heading up Bitchapave Hill for the final time. Dane still over Gibbs, Brabham back in third, and Giddings fourth. Looks like that's the way they're going to finish, Gary, as they drop into Dunlop Loop.
Yes, Dane's broken clear now.
They stay the way they are. Completion of round 7 of the series, Peter Dane would move ahead by 1 point because Ken Douglas didn't get a start in the point-scoring heat today. We saw what happened to him a little earlier, and Mark Gibbs would move up to third with 47 points, so a spread of just 4 points between the top 3 when they go to the next round next weekend at Amaroo Park, which would be very interesting.
To Honda Corner for the final time, and Peter Dane in the Westline Ford entry heads down to the Lake Corner for the last occasion. Not too far back behind him, Mark Gibbs, who led this race for a period. And back behind them in third is David Brabham, who also led it for a period. The last corner now comes up, Wonderlick Corner, and checkered flag is out. And coming up to take a checker, it's going to be Peter Dane. Gibbs is going to take second. Looks like Brabham third across the strike, and John Giddings is going to finish in fourth place. Well, an entertaining race, full of incidents and full of action too, particularly in the opening couple of laps. Cars drop over the top, and let's have a look at how they finish. Dane the winner, second place going to Gibbs, and third place going to David Brabham.
All happening out here at Amaroo Park this afternoon as Peter Dane receives his just rewards after winning round 7 of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Laser Series here at Amaroo Park this afternoon. Chris, you're going to do the honours there with the sash and the trophy for Peter after what was a very exciting round indeed. And as far as the series is concerned, it might disappoint him to know, Peter, that you're still 1 point behind Ken Douglas overall. I didn't even realise until they'd gone a couple of laps that he actually got his car back together after that little mishap this morning. Started from the rear of the grid there and snuck in 9th place. That gives him 2 points, so he's 1 point ahead of you in the overall series.
Well,
sneaky man.
He is a sneaky man, yeah, but I don't know, my mob down there saying that we're in front of him. I don't know. We'll
is that right?
Later.
No, he's not. I got news for you.
Oh, well,
get him next time, will you?
Next time, yeah.
I tell you what, there was a bit of fun and excitement out there. Young David Brabham doesn't take kindly to people trying to get past him on the track, and
you noticed too.
Oh, well, I've noticed the same about you. But he was very adventurous about it, wasn't
he? Yeah, he went off a little way. But no, we all had a good race. I don't think there's too many body panels swabbing, and we all had a good race.
Well, I think it was a little bit fortunate it turned out that way because there was a bit of damage in the earlier heat today, wasn't there?
Yeah, we were lucky enough to miss out on that, and I say lucky because that's the only way you missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was wet this morning. It just wasn't very nice to be racing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's all right now.
The racing in this series, earlier in this series, seemed to be a lot closer. Now there seem to be 2 divisions. There are half a dozen cars up front fighting it out that have got a fair break on the rest of the field.
Yeah, the first couple of meetings, I think the same front runners have pretty well been all the way through, but it's perhaps a little bit more spread now because the cars are getting all closely developed. There's nothing between Mark's car and my car and Dave's car and another couple. So, there's nothing to worry about. They're all pretty right.
Congratulations on a good win today.
Yeah.
Peter Dane, the winner of round 7. He and Ken Douglas can go and fight over who is 1 point in front of the series thus far. Here's Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. You know, we haven't seen much of the Rover Vitesse entries throughout the Australian Touring Car Championship, apart from a run by Tim Slako in Western Australia at Wanneroo and also in South Australia. But he's crossed the Nullarbor here today to join the set at Amaroo Park. And I guess you couldn't be further away from home.
Well, we certainly couldn't. No, it's the first time here and it's a long way away.
Well, obviously, budget restrictions must curtail most of your racing activities, but how does that affect you leading up to Bathurst?
Not at all at the moment. We've got everything under control. We've done a deal with Ivan to come over for this weekend and next weekend to run, but it's not affecting our budget for Bathurst.
Well, the Rovers, of course, won Group A at Bathurst last year, and everyone thought they'd be a front runner this year. But apart from yourself, no one else has chosen to run Rover.
I don't know why they haven't. Maybe I was lucky. I went over to England and bought one of the few that are built in the world. And maybe I was lucky that it was available at the time. I was going to build one, but went against that. There were going to be too many complications, so possibly that's put everybody else off.
How much of a handful have you found a big car on a small track such as Amaroo in your practice yesterday leading up to today's race?
I love the circuit. It's the first time I've been on the circuit, and it's a big car, but it's just handling unreal. It's unbelievable.
The news that Tom Walkinshaw is returning to Bathurst, but with 3 Jaguars and no Rovers.
Yeah, well, he's... I think it's to do with JRA, their sales campaign. They want to push Jaguars in the coming years, so they want to race Jaguars, Tom's Jaguars. The only thing we've got going for us there is that Tom's not racing them this year in Europe, so hopefully they're gaining cobwebs and not a lot of attention.
Well, obviously you got some help from another racer in Western Australia, Alf Barbagallo.
We certainly did. I'd like to thank Alf for giving us support. I think Alf might be looking at black track in the near future. I'm not too sure, but it's much appreciated.
We wish you well today, Tim.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Tim Slako running for Rover and obviously going to be a front runner by the time that the James Hardy 1000 comes around, and we'll follow his progress when we return to Amaroo Park.
Back at Amaroo Park, and it's Formula V action in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula V Series Round 4, the final round of a very exciting series. Let's have a look at the way they'll line up. On the front row of the grid, underneath the old lap record, Bernie Hanley with a time of 60.63. Alongside him, Phil Lewis, car number 4, 60.73. The second row of the grid consists of Stephen David and Ian Simpson from Queensland. The third row of the grid, Frank Kleinig and Sergio Lavamacoca. The fourth row of the grid, Steve Normoyle, car number 23. Alongside him in 47 is Rowan Onslow. The fifth row of the grid, car 24, Brian Phillips and David Smith in car 12, and rounding out the top dozen is Michael Cardason, and number 16 is David Cutts. So the top 6 rows there, and you can see quite a large field all fill in the remaining spots back to position number 25. And there's Bernie Hanley, the man who leads this series with 24 points and 3 clear of his Queensland rival, Ian Simpson.
Well, it's going to be a great scrap between Bernie Hanley and Ian Simpson. Simpson getting on top at the last meeting. We're about 8 seconds away from the start. One great scrap in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula V Series final at Amaroo Park. And they're racing, and Super Vet Bernie gets off the line very, very quickly indeed. Phil Lewis getting away just as quickly and dropping into second, but there's Simpson making his run already. Number 9, Frank Kleinig, got a good start as they head up towards Nissan Skyline for the first time. But by the time they'll drop into the loop, that Super Vet, Bernie Hanley, 44 years of age, is going to be in front, and that's where he likes to dictate a race from.
Simpson's in second place. After the last meeting here, when Simpson beat Bernie Hanley, Bernie's done a little bit of work on the car. I think he's found a little extra.
They'll need him because Simpson was very, very quick and beat Hanley convincingly in their last outing here. Through Mazda, down to the left-hander at Honda, out of Honda, and the run down to the lake corner now, little kink to the right in the straight. And Bernie Hanley doing it nicely. Heads down with Simpson still making his charge after Hanley. And in third place is Phil Lewis as they come out of the lake corner and now once again along to Camalco Wunderlich turn. Is Simpson, 76. Across the line, 1 completed, 9 to run, and Hanley will lead them up the hill. And with a good gap there opening, but Simpson finds himself under a little bit of pressure here from Phil Lewis. Lewis making the front row here today. That's quite an achievement. There he is in car number 4.
And Frank Kleinig moving in there as well, Mike. The black car number 9. So rapidly becoming a 4-way duel. And Bernie's going to have to do some thinking here because he's got Ian Simpson plugged right in behind. And car number 77 in trouble is Trevor Petts from Queensland. Off and running once again, no damage done.
They're all closing up on Bernie here. Through Honda. Simpson second, Lewis third. Kleinig in 4th spot.
Bernie's had a run in the Laser Series this year, but this is a category of racing he absolutely dictates, and that's Formula V's at this track, in particular Amaroo Park. And here he is, just look at the charges. Bernie having a look in the mirrors, going to lead them across the line and make Amaroo the widest racetrack for Ian Simpson. Simpson now ranges up on the outside, looks to have a little top-end speed as they go over the top, but Hanley will be in good shape for the right-hand kick here to Dunlop Loop if he can get back on the inside, but he can't. And now in car 76, Ian Simpson of Queensland has gone through to take over the lead from Bernie Hanley. Hanley won't throw it away, though. He'll go right back after Simpson.
Interesting thing here is that if Simpson wins this race and picks up the 9 points for victory, he's got 21 at the moment, that moves him on to 30. Bernie's got 24, and second place is 6 points. They tie on points with 30.
Well, they could always argue about who got the trophy, I suppose. I think Bernie could win that.
Frank Kleinig is up in a 3rd place.
Phil Lewis dropped back a long way, didn't he?
Yes, he's dropped fairly well back in 4th spot, just ahead of Stephen David. The top 3 now well clear. Simpson, Henley, Kleinig. The race is far from over, though.
Once across the line, and Bernie thinking about a little charge up here on the outside. Draws alongside Simpson. Now, the old idea is to get across to the right hand as quick as you can to get the run down to the turn. Bernie says, how about that for a class for an old guy? Gets through and takes the lead back again. Simpson probably at this stage wondering what he's got to do to have this one in the bag. And look at Kleinig. Kleinig is just storming after the pair of them as they come down the back straight. Simpson was thinking of a little pass there if he could get up on the inside, but that's not the place you do it.
Phil Lewis has lost another spot, and Stephen David is into 4th place.
You get the impression that Kleinig could be the sleeper in this one. He has pulled a pair of them in, coming down to the lake corner. Simpson keeping the pressure well and truly on Bernie Hanley, and Kleinig, and they're picking up Phil Lewis again. Then number 11 going through as well. Signboards to the front runners, and some jockeying for positions now going on. Hanley on the inside. Once again, Simpson up on the outside, trying to take the lead away as they go over the top of Nissan Skyline and down into Dunlop Loop.
Stephen David is up into 3rd place in car number 2, has got by Frank Kleinig. Simpson leads. Henley 2nd. Stephen David 3rd. Kleinig 4th. And then Phil Lewis.
It'll be the best track in Australia for Formula V racing with so many changes of position.
Stephen David and Frank Kleinig both share 3rd placing in this series at the moment with 9 points apiece, so they've got their own private battle going on.
You have to be a mathematical genius to work this out later, Neil. Out of Honda corner, the dice for the leads is still on. Simpson, race leader, Hanley in 2nd spot. Then this great scrap between Stephen David and of course, Frank Kleinig. And back behind them, Phil Lewis. And the way the script's written, Bernie Hanley should just about pull out here on the run up the hill again and pass the race leader, Ian Simpson.
Stephen David is anxious to get by everybody by the look of it.
Pretty aggressive, isn't it? Up on the outside.
Very wide.
I think he's going to do it. Up onto the inside of Bernie. How does he look as he comes across the other side of the hill? No, back into 3rd as you were. So it's Bernie in 2nd, Ian Simpson still in the lead. Frank Kleinig bringing up 4th. Phil Lewis behind him.
Down towards Mazda corner, here they come. Simpson doing it nicely with Hanley. No further back than 2nd. He certainly doesn't need to be any further back than that if he's going to make a last-minute charge at Simpson. Simpson with a little bit of pressure on his shoulders at this stage. How close is Bernie? He's on the hook. And here comes Kleinig down the inside. Keep in mind, Frank, that there's a right-hand corner here.
While all this is going on, Mike, we ought to mention that Peter Laddix, who was only 1/100th of a second slower than Bernie Henley in practice, but who had to start from the rear of the grid because of some irregularity with his car, has now moved up, having started from 25th spot to 8th.
He could win it.
The way things are going, yes.
Here comes Bernie up on the inside this time of Ian Simpson. And look who's back in front again. Stephen David still back there in 3rd. And of course Frank Kleinig in there rounding off the 4 as they come down to Mazda again. A great seesaw between the very experienced Bernard Hanley and this well-performed interstater, Ian Simpson. They don't look busy in the cockpit at all. Bernie does it as though it's a Sunday afternoon drive. Through the gears to the lake corner again.
nose to tail. Through they go. Stephen David again's the one that's looking anxious in third spot. Here he comes, pulls out, so does Simpson.
Bernie's trying to keep the inside run here, has a little squat over, has a look, and it's all on again. Simpson goes back into the lead. Bernie said there's no way he's going to his own second spot. He's got to hang in there and hopefully outdraft Ian Simpson up the hill the next time.
He's got to be careful how he does it too,
yes.
because if he doesn't watch his rear guard, he'll end up with Stephen David splitting the two of them, and that'll make their little points battle very, very interesting.
About 2.5 laps remaining as they run downhill to, of course, Honda Corner.
And whatever else happens, Bernie's got to be very careful he doesn't come in third.
Yes, that's right. That's what I was getting at. So Simpson 76, half a car length over Bernie Hanley. Right-hander at Winfield. Simpson using every little bit. Yep. Stephen David third, Frank Kleinig in fourth, Phil Lewis in fifth, and then a gap to the next bunch. And all the moves start unravelling once again. Bernie rallycross on the inside. Stephen David takes the advantage and could come out of this pretty nicely placed.
A whole new race leader, I'd say, over the top of the hill.
Well, this will upset the apple cart.
That does push Bernie back to third. That's where he can't afford to be.
Bernie's lost the script.
I think he might pick it up again next time up Betchapay, because I think the script calls for him to pass Ian Simpson.
Right.
So it might get back to second.
What does the script say about laps remaining?
About 1.5. Down the hill again to the left-hander at Honda Corner. Stephen David has come from nowhere, now leads. Ian Simpson in second, and Bernie Hanley in third.
And Phil Lewis just jumped up into fourth place ahead of Kleinig.
David using the wide line.
Watching his mirrors all the way.
Yes.
Notice having a bit of a nod along the way, left to right.
Now the run up this straight is going to be very important for Hanley.
1 lap.
Simpson's going to pull out and have a shot here at David, but Hanley will have to go with him. Burp, burp. Straight looking for these guys to make the run between the two of them. Now, how have they come out of here? Now, Simpson's gone through. Hanley's dropped back into second. We've got a tied series so far as they exit Dunlop Loop and work down to Mazda.
Well, Bernie's going to have to find something in a big hurry here.
He's been known to do it before. Bernie pulls out all stops, coming down to Honda Corner for the last time. Simpson in front. Pressure from Bernie.
The braking duel down at this next corner is going to be a beauty, because Bernie's gone down the outside. Number 2's getting back into it, Stephen David. Bernie is going to try and come out here on the inside with a quicker line. Can he do it? I think he might. The run, yes, he's going to do it.
He's got
last
the line.
corner, and I don't think Simpson will give up. Bernie takes a bit of the curve with him. They come out, coming down to the flag, and David's going to get up, but Simpson wins it with 4 or 5 of them across the line.
Goodness me, I think Stephen David's got up to take second place there.
I think he has.
And if that's the case, it'll give Simpson the series.
Well, they drop over the top, and looking at confirmation of placings, the race provisionally going to Simpson, second spot to Stephen David, and third place to Bernard Hanley.
Well, that was the final round of the Coca-Cola Formula V Series here at Amaroo Park for 1985, and to celebrate the final round, Coke have decided to come out and do things in a big way. David Ansell is here to make the presentation. Ian Simpson from Queensland won the final race, and that victory has given him victory in the series for 85.
Yeah. Ian, all the best. We've got a sash for you there. Just one moment of your time, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Coca-Cola bottlers, I'd like to thank all the competitors who took part during the series in 1985. To Ian, a fabulous performance today and a very consistent performance during the season. As I said, on behalf of Coca-Cola bottlers, all the very best. Well done. Thank you very much.
That was desperately close stuff.
That's right, Gary. I saw Steve David in there with a couple of laps to go, and I thought Steve could work out as a beautiful buffer here, because I knew I needed to put a car between Bernie and I so that I could win the series, and it just worked out nicely.
You're a bit severe on Bernie, weren't you, in the last corner there? I mean, I thought he had the inside line, and you've edged him onto the ripple strip.
Well, I've always been taught that if your wheel's in front, it's your corner. Unfortunately for Bernie, my wheel was in front.
Well, Stephen David has staged a brilliant finish, as you said, to get up and nut Bernie out of second place. In fact, if Bernie had been able to finish second, it would have been a dead heat for the series between the two of you. You'd obviously done your homework.
That's right, Gary. I'd just like to say thanks very much to Bernie also, who's been a fantastic competitor through the whole series. We've had it between the two of us for all 4 rounds. And I wouldn't find a nicer guy to race against.
Congratulations on a great victory today and in the series. We can't go without one word. No, it's impossible for Bernie to say one word.
That's why it'll take me more than one, isn't it?
What have you got to say for yourself? I mean, you've been so dominant all season here up until the last meeting, and you've let this bloke get under your guard.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to let him, but unfortunately, this is how it goes sometimes.
You'll be back next season?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Look forward to seeing you then.
Hopefully, I'll find a sponsor for my car, which might make things a bit more easier.
Keep going.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bernie Henley, what a great man, but congratulations in the final analysis to Ian Simpson. Right now, here's Neil Crompton.
Thanks, Gary. Well, adding interest to today's round 4 of the Stallion Stable Goodyear Group E Series is the new Commodore vehicles that are going to be running around in the race, and it's going to be particularly interesting seeing that the man who lies in 3rd position in the series now has one of those cars. Jeff Newton, it's looking pretty good for you.
Yeah, well, we're about a second off the pace at the moment. The Starions are about a second quicker than what they were last meeting, so we've got a second to try and catch up. But the Commodores, they're only new. The 308's only eligible as from July, so that it's going to take us probably a couple of meetings to get our tyre pressures right, the right shockers, and I think the Commodores were probably the best thing that's happened to Group E, really.
Were you happy with the car yesterday in practice?
Moderately, yeah. We've as I say, we've still got a few things to do to it. We're a second off the pace, but it'll be right in a couple of meetings. It'll be a good car.
It must be quite a contrast having driven the small Daihatsu Charade.
Well, I raced a Falcon before the Charade, so I'm getting back into big cars again. The Charade was a great little car, but we felt we'd get better exposure from a sponsor, Sunoco Oil.
Now, looking on paper, the 5-litre Commodore seems to weigh up quite nicely against the Starions and the Mazda and so forth. Are you hopeful that this can actually be a class-leading car in the not-too-distant future?
I think so. I think the car has got great potential. The Starions have been around for, 2-3 years now, and we're knocking on their door now. So, as I say, probably next year, I think the Commodores will be right up there, and it'll be a pretty good fight between the two. Well, the Courtiers are in there. It'll be very interesting.
For those that don't know, what kind of modifications can you or can't you make to Group E cars?
Well, the only modifications you can make are the shockers, change the shockers. Basically, that's all. Make sure the car is, the engine's built right, and nothing else can be done to them.
Wish you the very best of luck, and on yesterday's form, the car looking very good.
Thanks, Neil.
So, Jeff Newton looking very good for round 4 of the Stallion Stable Group E Series. We'll be back after this break.
Pace is pretty hectic here at Amaroo Park because they're already lining up on the grid for the next event, which is round 4 of the Stallion Stable Goodyear Group E production series here at Amaroo Park. Another series that's provided extremely close and entertaining racing here throughout the 1985 season. Peter Fitzgerald, Brad Jones, Gary Walden, Des Gibbs really have thrilled the fans here in this category. And I think that you'll find the same again today, particularly with Jones, young Brad Jones from Albury, and Peter Fitzgerald. A great rivalry has developed between that pair. Gary Walden finds himself a little bit further back on the grid for this event than he'd like. Fitzgerald on pole position. Jones on the front row with him. Des Gibbs and Don Bretland on the second row. Then Gary Walden and Brian Potts. Gerard Murphy in the Alpha and Stephen Gall in the BMW. Ross Burbidge, Mark Smith, David Ratcliffe, Jeff Newton, and a field of 16.
As the flag drops, Jones and Fitzgerald side by side.
Jones has the best of it, but Fitzgerald powering up on the inside. No, Jones is going to hold him out, I think, over the top.
Yes, Jones will lead down to Dunlop Loop for the first time. Fitzgerald drops right in behind him, keeping the pressure. Oh, dearie me, 18.
Ross Burbidge.
Yes, well, they've moved all of the zebra crossing tyres up there. Dick Johnson will be wrapped in that. That's Ross Burbidge, but he moves off, and the race continues, heading down to Mazda Corner. Here's what happened. Look for Burbidge. He got a hit in the back. Burbidge comes round, collects the first tyre, knocks the water out of it, and then humps the second tyre, and he's out of contention. Meanwhile, the race continues, heading down towards the lake corner, and it'll be Brad Jones in the class Starion, number 14, leading from Peter Fitzgerald in the number 3 car. They've cleared out just a little. Gibbs not too far back behind them, coming out of the corner and across the line.
3 Starions at the top of the field. Then Don Bretland in the RX-7 Mazda in the first of the new 5-litre Commodores, being driven by Brian Potts. That car posted the fastest lap time in the preceding preliminary in this event earlier on today. So Bradley Jones recovering from 2 third placings at the last meeting and in contention here for yet another win. Dominant driver in the first 2 rounds. Leads the series with a total of 29 points, 6 clear of Gary Walden in the RX-7, who's back at about 6th or 7th at the moment. There is behind Potts. There's Stephen Gall, Jerry Murphy in the Alpha. Jeff Newton a fair way back, the man that we spoke to just a few moments ago. Gibbs in 3rd, fending off that position at the moment from Donnie Bretland. Brad Jones took the Starion around Amaroo Park yesterday, the fastest time ever recorded. And he must surely be one of the finds in Australian motor racing in the last 12 months or so.
He certainly is. 25 years of age from Albury. Began racing motorcycles on the dirt tracks when only 14 years of age. And, of course, became the Victorian champion in the 125 and 250cc short circuit category. Began circuit racing in 1980 in an L1 Ford. Had 2 wins from 2 starts. So he's been a consistent winner since he entered motorsport.
His brother Kim was a very good operator in Formula Ford as well. But Bradley, having raced against him back in the old motocross days, is a pretty tough little performer, I can tell you. He gets his elbows up and his head down the way he goes, and he's a hard man to get around.
He's got a tough man here clinging to his tail, and that's Peter Fitzgerald, a man who really dominated Group E racing here at Amaroo Park last season in the East Side Mitsubishi entry, number 3. So if Brad makes one mistake, you can expect Peter Fitzgerald to be right there to take advantage.
And it's all happening behind these guys as well for the minor placings. The field starts to bunch up. There goes Gibbs and Bretland, but this next bunch, headed by Brian Potts, followed by Stephen Gall and Gary Walden and Jerry Murphy.
Having their own private war.
Have they ever?
There's Bretland going through in the Mazda, and the first of the Commodores, and the scrap behind them. Bretland over the top.
Brian Potts just behind him. Car 10, the Commodore. Back with the lead, Brad Jones. Fitzgerald. Car 64, Des Gibbs holding down 3rd place.
Gibbs a long way back in the point score at present with only 2 points to his credit. Shares that total with Stephen Gall.
I was only thinking what a difference a meeting makes. At the last one, Gary Walden put the RX-7 back on pole and looked like he was going to carry on with it for the remainder of the season. And Gary's having dickens of a job even containing the middle markers here today.
He was so quick, in fact, after the last meeting, they pulled the car down. They thought there was something wrong with the RX-7. It was going too quickly. They found nothing, but he's not really on form today. So here's the battle for 3rd. Gibbs, followed by Bretland, and then a small gap back to Brian Potts. And as I mentioned before, the first of these new 5-litre 308 V8 Holdens.
They'll be a competitive piece of machinery. As soon as they have time, I think, perhaps to do some more sorting with them.
Yes, Gibbs doing a bit of seesawing here. Left to right, catching the Starion time and again. He gets it through finally. And that allows Don Bretland to maximise the opportunities and close the gap. And Stephen Gall now having a nibble on the inside of Brian Potts behind these 2. So it's all happening here in the Group E Stallion Stable Group E production series, as it has been right throughout the year.
Commodores have certainly got the the power, Neil. They just seem to lack a little bit in the handling department, particularly around the Amaroo circuit. But as Mike said, once they've had a couple of meetings to get things sorted out, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the category.
Indeed they are. In fact, most of the guys are pretty impressed with the way they're performing so early on in their development. Brian Potts, the man who's putting it down to best advantage at present. About 240 brake horsepower being produced by these 308 5-litre Holdens. So obviously plenty of horses compared to, say, for example, the BM. And here's the leader, Brad Jones, over the top and with a margin over Peter Fitzgerald.
Yes, that gap is open between Brad and Peter. A couple of car lengths as Brad goes on his way down towards Mazda corner, improving that gap all the time. And of course, from second to third has also opened up. The downhill run to the left-hander at Honda corner.
Oh, Bradley, gee. He's getting a bit savage, isn't he?
Getting plenty, wasn't he?
Yeah. The remarkable thing about that was he didn't lose any ground in that little manoeuvre. In fact, he's probably opened up the gap a bit further on Fitzgerald. Or under brakes, Fitzgerald closes up again at the lake corner.
This time they'll have 2 laps remaining. Round 4 today of the Stallion Stable Goodyear Group E Series at Amaroo Park. The final, of course, of the series will be held here in August, coinciding with the 300-kilometre touring car Enduro, the first round of the Endurance Championship. Class, the sponsor, and the kid driving it has a ton of it. That's Brad Jones. Well clear as he makes his way down towards Mazda corner with Peter Fitzgerald still in hot pursuit.
Class, for those that don't know, is a very big agricultural machinery manufacturer from Albury. So a lot of people have wondered just exactly what that's all about. That's who they are, and they're supporting Bradley Jones in his rise to the top of Australian motor racing.
Back to winner.
And they're even talking about involving themselves in Group A later this year or early next year. And if that happens, then we might finally see a nice new, young, fresh face in the Group A ranks, which would be wonderful. And there's more action back in the tail end of this field, as I mentioned before, some close battling for third and fourth. Here's the leaders, Fitzgerald in second, and then the other bunch coming through the stop corner at the moment. Last lap board comes out, so I think it's pretty safe to say you can drop the binoculars for the first 2, but have a look at this battle. Here's the shot. Who's come out on top here? At last count, it was Don Brett. No, it's Stephen Gall. Well, the 4-time Mr. Motocross champion looking good here. Back to Bradley Jones again.
He's done well and increasing his lead all the time over Peter Fitzgerald. There's the gap, actually. First to second. Can't spot third at the moment. Through Mazda, down to the left-hander at Honda. And Brad Jones looks like locking up this one, round 4 this afternoon. A little easier on the car that time through the bend. And the run now down towards the lake corner for the final time. I think you're right. Back in the pack, Steve Gall has done a great job again. Oh, geez, adapted well to circuit racing from his motocross.
Hasn't he ever? 4-time Mr. Motocross champion and 4-time Australian 250cc champion. And the 2 motocrossers have done it well because Bradley Jones will take the checkered flag in this one to take out round 4 of the Stallion Stable Goodyear Production Series. And of course in second place Peter Fitzgerald, and here's the man we spoke about, Stephen Gall in the 323 BMW for third, Brian Potts for fourth, Jerry Murphy in the Alpha behind him, followed by Gary Walden, Don Bretland, Des Gibbs. So look how far back Des Gibbs was at the end of it all. Here comes confirmation of placings, and taking the win was Bradley Jones in the Stallion. Second placing of course went to Peter Fitzgerald, and rounding out the top 3, Stephen Gall in the BMW.
Chris Davis from Stallion Stable Goodyear is making the presentation to Brad Jones after his victory in today's round of the series here at Amaroo Park. It was a pretty hard one victory too, I might say, Brad.
Oh, very hard. That was one of the hardest ones we've had.
Wipe that off before you get home, will you?
We qualified on pole yesterday and we're feeling very happy, and then this morning we got beaten, which didn't help anyone, especially me, or except Peter. And it was hard work, but Peter was always there. I was driving very hard the whole race.
For a category in which the racing is so close and the cars are so even, supposedly, how come Gary Walden came out here last meeting and blew everybody away? You had 2 third placings after leading the series up to that point, and today you've come out and shown everybody a clean pair of heels again.
Well, we're hard workers. No, Gary was doing very well yesterday and today. He was second on the grid for the first heat, and we had a bit of an accident over at Honda, which put him further back on the grid and into Mazda.
and once you're back on the grid, you may as well stay home.
You were pretty lucky, I guess, that you were free and clear of the incident over the top of the hill the first time. Ross Burbage, unfortunately, got pushed into those concrete-filled tyres up there.
Yes, they don't move very much. Like that concrete wall over there that I hit last time I was here, they don't move much at all.
I guess when you win the jump like that and you're first over the top of the hill...
you breathe a big sigh of relief.
You do, but there's an awful lot of incentive to keep going when you've got an old stager like Fitzgerald hot on your hammer.
Well, yes. The hardest part is when you're behind, you're chasing and you're concentrating so hard. But when you're in front, you're starting to look in the mirror and you're starting to get a bit jumpy, and it's hard to know which is better. But I'm glad we won.
And we were only observing that you motocross blokes are sticking together. You've taken the checkered flag, and Gall snuck up into third place.
Yes, he's done very well. We'll be taking him.
Not bad for a new boy.
Very good. Yeah, he's driven very well today and yesterday.
OK, congratulations. Another great victory to Brad Jones, who is now, of course, a clear leader in the Stallion Stable Goodyear Series here at Amaroo Park. Here's Mike Raymond.
One Make Series racing is nothing new to motorsport and Amaroo Park in particular. However, the current Nissan Turbo Series has enjoyed unparalleled credibility because of the drivers involved and the stakes, which are incredibly high. $25,000 in total prize money and a new Nissan Skyline. The drivers draw for the cars they will race and their starting positions at each round. If one Nissan is slightly better, well, the luck is spread around throughout the series. The competition got underway at Sydney's Amaroo Park earlier this year with writer racer Peter McKay charging from the front line to edge out a fast-finishing Alan Grice. Heat 2, a reverse grid, and Queensland's Dick Johnson was to take some stopping. There was plenty of traffic congestion, but Dick was just too quick. The series moved to Adelaide next, and the spectators were treated to some spectacular pitching and twitching at the end of the long straight. Nissan executives might have been all smiles with such a clean opening to the event, but Gary Rogers soon changed their expressions when he turret tested the 10 Turbo on the reverse camber approach to the bowl. To his and the car's credit, they motored on to the finish in the event, which was won by George Fury. Grice came back to take Heat 4, but at the end of the day, Bond had taken the series lead with consistency. Keilor was the next stop for the one-make tournament, and Grice became the first back-to-back winner, taking Heat 5 and then turning in a blinder from the back in Heat 6. Open wheeler ace John Bowe led them to the flag, but Grice had the lead on the points table, 132 to Bowe's 125, Bond 122, and George Fury on 120. From Keilor, it was back to Sydney's Amaroo Park for the next round of the tournament, and once again it was local Alan Grice who was expected to dominate. However, Queensland's Dick Johnson sprung a surprise when he went to the lead in the first heat with John Bowe, Gary Rogers and George Fury in hot pursuit. Grice had it all to do from near the back of the field, but clawed his way into the top 5. The second heat saw the usual jockeying for positions in the opening lap before Colin Bond made his move for the lead. Jim Richards, slow to start in the series because of an unfortunate draw in the opening races, was at his competitive best at Amaroo Park. He sat in behind Bond and resisted every attempt by Gary Scott to improve his position. Grice once again had to do it the hard way through the traffic, but he displaced Steve Masterton in the final lap to finish a strong fourth. The Nissan door handle set last weekend returned to Adelaide International Raceway. The climate might have been cold, but the racing was just the opposite. Rainmaster Richards must have been praying for the clouds to open, but the web-footed Kiwi was equally at home in the dry. Len Seaton was the first casualty when he rode his car into an earth bank, and one Nissan was missing from the field. George Fury took Richards for the lead while Gary Rogers picked up third. It was a day of drama for the one-make series. Richards took Heat 2 over Fury and Scott, and the little cars moved to Amaroo Park today. The point score looks like this. Fury at the top of the leaderboard on 211 to Alan Grice 204, Richards on 203, Dick Johnson next on 199, and Colin Bond at 197.
Amaroo Park today sees the debut of a new development in Seven's coverage of motorsport. We've seen cameras in cars, we've seen cameras in headlights. Today, we're attaching a camera to an open wheeler, a Formula Ford car that's going to give you a spectacular new view of the racetrack action. Richard Carter is the driver of the car. Richard, this is a new experience for you too.
It is, Gary. The camera weighs a considerable amount in kilograms, but in practice yesterday it didn't really seem to slow us down very much at all.
You've been in motor racing a long time. I think you won the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series a long time back. Why have you stuck at it so long? Obviously you enjoy it.
Well, I retired for a while. I thought I'd achieved the level of success that I was looking for. But unfortunately life became a little bit boring after a while, so I decided to get back into it.
Well, you've seen the test pictures that we've already got out of this camera. Do you think they're boring?
Not at all. I hope the viewers at home can enjoy some of the spectacular aspect of motor racing that we as drivers enjoy from the cockpit.
Well, it is great technology that Dave Thomas and his crew here have put together on this car. And of course, as I said, we've seen the pictures out of Dick Johnson's Mustang and the other cars that we've utilised with 7-cam over the years, both here at Amaroo, at the other racetracks and at Bathurst. This will be sensational. In fact, we've given you a taste of the pictures, but Richard Carter is about to go out and take to the racetrack, and we're going to see this camera perform under actual race conditions. I assure you, it will be breathtaking. We'll be back at Amaroo Park in a moment.
The high-powered Australian Touring Car Championship climaxes next Sunday with the Castrol Grand Final at Amaroo Park. It's no holds barred for all your favourites: Johnson, Brock, Richards, Bond, and newcomer Francevic's turbocharged Volvo. Plus sports sedans, the Alpha Couriers Australian Formula 2 Championship, Motorcraft Formula Ford, and Goodyear Ford Lasers. 12 action-packed events, family areas and rides for the kids. Amaroo Park, 10 a.m. Sunday, the Castrol Touring Car Grand Final.
And back at Amaroo Park, and Thomas Mazira in that ever-familiar spot, pole position for round 4 of the Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series, which incorporates round 3 of the local Coke Series. And alongside him there is Jeffrey Walters. In fact, let's take a look at the entire grid as they line up now for this 15-lapper. On the front row of the grid, Thomas Mazira, a time of 53.29 underneath his existing lap record. Alongside him, Jeffrey Walters in car number 2. The second row, Richard Carter carrying race cam. Behind him, or alongside him, should I say, 43, Dave Stanley. On the third row of the grid from Victoria, Roger Martin in the PRS and Bradley Forjard in the Von Diemen. The fourth row consists of car number 27, Alan Bissett, and 88, Andrew Burden in the Lola. The fifth row, Tim Murray, car number 22 in the Elwyn, and Gary Jones, car 77 in the Bowen. And the sixth row, the top 12, consisting of 23, Scott Elson, and 20, Barry Ward, and another dozen or so competitors rounding out the top 25. So there's Carter carrying race cam, and the first time that we've had live open wheeler pictures looking from the driver's viewpoint, and that's going to be fascinating viewing. The driver's now less than 10 seconds away from the start. 15 laps of the journey. There's the view from Richard Carter's car.
Racing now and getting away smartly off the inside, and car number 4 is Jeff Walters, and we take the ride with Richard Carter, race cam, a world first from an open wheeler, brought to you by 7. Dropping into third with Thomas Mazira now taking over the lead. In second spot is Jeff Walters as they drop down into Dunlop Loop, and then Richard Carter in the Vision Graphics Maytech back there in third as they exit the loop and now run down the back straightaway. Once again towards Mazda corner. That's how close the front-running 3 are as they go into Mazda. Now the run downhill and the left-hander coming up at Honda. Mazira goes through in 5. 4, of course, is Walters. Carter is the next one through. And then back behind them is Dave Stanley, who's dropped into 4th place. Down to the right-hander at the lake. Magnificent pictures coming from the front of Richard Carter's Maytech, the Vision Graphics machine. So they come up to Wonderlick Corner for the completion of first lap. That's 1 down, 14 to go.
So Mazira, the man who leads the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series. In fact, there's really only been 2 rounds completed, with the third round being cancelled, or in fact disqualified. The results from that third round at Service Paradise, as a recall, in our 7 Sport coverage. So Mazira the leader, Walters in second with 30, Andrew Burden in third with 20. And Mazira is also the leader of the Coke Series, and again, Walters in second place. So it really is a battle between these two. And Mazira, the great open wheeler talent in Australia in the last 12 months.
15 laps is a lot of laps to have to survive around Amaroo Park, particularly in a field of 25 Formula 4s, which we've got here this afternoon. But Mazira is doing it at the right end of things. He's out in front, well in front, and it's the best place to be.
Some talk that Mazira may go touring car racing later in the year. It's certainly been the find of the open wheelers so far. Walters doing a good job, and of course Carter, as we take race cam again, going up Pitcher Payfield, section of the huge crowd here off to the left, at the top of Nissan Skyline.
Harden them out.
Into the left, and they've got to work their way back to the right, and a reverse camber corner. So let's do one complete lap. You can hear the wind just coming over the top of the front wing as Richard Carter goes out after Thomas Mazira and Jeff Walters. Well, the American networks might be having problems putting pictures together, but we've been able to do it, and it's been good to see a world first here at Amaroo today. There's Thomas Mazira going through in car number 5, stretching that lead, of course, over Jeff Walters in the L1. Car number 4, Carter still back there in third place and holding that down very, very comfortably indeed.
I wish I had a horse or two that could carry overweight the way Richard Carter is.
Richard Carter, of course, 36 years of age. At the moment, on screen, running in second place is Jeff Walters in the Logan Holmes L1. Only 0.3 of a second difference in qualifying between Walters and Mazira yesterday. There's Walters going through. And here's Carter carrying our race cam. 36 years of age, comes from Bayview in Sydney. Commenced racing when at Warwick Farm back in 1968 in sports cars, then into Formula Fords. He won the Driver to Europe Series for Grace Brothers team in 1976, and he retired until last year. Maytech, of course, built as a backyard special in 1974. It's a good basic design. It lacks the latest state-of-the-art sophistication. And he's got a very, very good team and ably supported by Vision Graphics, the specialist colour photographic laboratory in Sydney. He's doing a good job out there.
Well, if his car lacks something, there's a lot of cars behind him that lack an awful lot.
Yes, for a fellow that's been away from racing for a while, and he is carrying some sort of a weight penalty, I guess. But Dave Thomas and the engineering group from Channel 7 in Sydney have spent a lot of time getting the balance right in the car to be able to carry a camera, have it properly weighted so that it wasn't a disadvantage to him to carry, and it's certainly not, because Mazira's been winning everything all season. Jeff Walters has been running second all season, so he's doing a great job.
Neil, this camera certainly gives a beautiful picture of the handling capabilities of these cars, doesn't it?
It really does, and I'm just sitting here at the moment, Gary, sort of rocking left to right and feeling as though I'm a part of the action, but it certainly puts you right in the driver's seat, and you can see just how well a purpose-built racing car hugs to the road around the Amaroo Park course. In fact, the race cam adds around about 8 or 9 kilograms to the total weight of the Maytech, and it weighs in just over 485 kilograms with driver. But, gee, Richard Carter pushing it to the absolute limit at the moment, getting up on the ripple strips. And I think, if anything, he's starting to perhaps close the gap a little bit on Jeffrey Walters in second place, the man who has 2 second placings already in the Coke Series and 2 second placings in the Formula 4 Driver to Europe Series. So Thomas Mazira climbing his way up towards the top of the hill in his customary position. A man who has just recently received contact from the Reynard factory in England, and they would like him to go over there and test Formula Ford and perhaps even have a drive in their new Formula 3 car.
Well, the way things are going, he might get a free trip.
That'd be sensational, which, if anything, might be to the detriment of Australian motorsport, because, as Mike said before, there was talk of him getting involved in a touring car drive as well. But, this fellow's got great open-wheel talent. The Driver to Europe Series again providing the right kind of stepping stone into either Formula Ford in England or perhaps Formula 3 and beyond.
6 laps of 15 completed in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series, also coinciding with a round of the Driver to Europe Series. Coming back across the line again. There's our leader going through. Walters running in second spot. Then, of course, Richard Carter in third. And Carter holds probably about 150 to 175 metre lead over the fourth place driver.
It's a difficult race for both Jeff Walters and for Richard Carter because they're about 40 to 50 metres astern.
Oh, there's one that hasn't made it.
That's not the stern either. That's the nose that's been demolished.
Can't pick the number up on that car at the moment. But the driver's stepping out. And he's quite okay.
It looks like an L1, the car, so I think it must be Don Gregg.
Could be.
Car 46.
Probably pick up the car as Richard Carter comes down to the corner where the incident occurred. Out there against the wall. Flags are out, no passing at that part of the racetrack. But through Camelco Wonderlic turn, and once again back up the straight. There's Richard Carter still holding down third. The leader, of course, though, is the driver of car number 5, and that's Thomas Mazera. It makes this all look very, very easy. Every race we watch him.
Thomas Mazera, in fact, the last lap through posted an unofficial 54.28, which is some 2/10 slower than his lap record at 53.95. So he's right on the pace and not fooling around at all. Jeffrey Waddles, you notice the back of his car when we see it next, has got a rather unusual looking aerodynamic aid. In fact, what looks to be a wing in the eyes of some of the other Formula Ford competitors out there today, and there's been a bit of consternation about that. The Reynard being driven by Mazera, again being the dominant car. Here is the man I was talking about, car number 4, Jeffrey Waddles. Look at the back of the car, a little different to the usual L1 shape. And he prefers to call it a shade for the gearbox.
Oh, I see. Keep the sun off.
Yeah.
Right. He's actually getting a little closer to Mazera as the laps unwind here. They've both drawn away from Richard Carter, so it's really a race in 2, or at least it's up to Walters to try and make it a race in 2, and he's endeavouring to do so, bridging the gap ever so slowly on Thomas Mazera, but you get the feeling, don't you, that Mazera's still got plenty up his sleeve.
2.5 seconds separating Mazera from this man here, Jeffrey Walters, mag wheel manufacturer from Wollongong in New South Wales, and outfits himself with a very professional team. The Elwyn, built of course in New South Wales by Elwyn Bickley. So it's English engineering versus Australian engineering at the moment. And at present the Poms are 1 up.
That gap still widening between Thomas Mazera and Walters going through at the moment. A similar gap then back, of course, to Richard Carter in 3rd place.
Formula Ford racing has been surviving in Australia and overseas for a very long time. Very popular formula, which has allowed many drivers, well-known drivers in Australia, to make their step across to Europe. The cars are fairly well controlled in terms of regulation. 1600cc cross-flow pushrod Ford engines, type of engine that you get out of the old Capri XLs or the Escort gears. Fairly stringent requirements for chassis, and most of them develop the good ones, that is around about 110 odd brake horsepower. Here's the leader.
5 laps remaining.
Yes, indeed, and it is car 5 with 5 laps remaining, Thomas Mazera.
Mazera heads up Bitchapave Hill again, still 175 metres clear of Jeff Walters in the Elwyn, and Richard Carter in 3rd. Makes it all look ever so easy. There's Mazera, very tight, tidy lines. And he is well clear, and I think still increasing that lead over Walters.
Thomas's team manager was saying this morning to me that provided the point score continues to fall the way that it has for Tom, they may not even do the entire 8 rounds of this series. They might bail at round 5 or round 6, enabling Thomas to get away for this potential trip to Europe, or perhaps the touring car drive. Following this, there's Oran Park, Calder, Winton, and then the final of this series again at Oran Park on the 22nd of September. So there's a lot of racing to come.
There's the race leader running away with this. And that, of course, Thomas Mazera. Walters in 2nd, and Richard Carter carrying race cam, heading up Bitchapave Hill again. Just to give you another lap or so around the course with Richard as he goes over the top of Bitchapave Hill.
Clear view in front of him at the moment.
Walters has managed to run away a little from him. The Carter still using the same lines. He was up on the ripple strip over there a few laps ago. A little tidier down through that part of the course. Out of the right-hand kink at Mazda Corner. The downhill run coming up to the left-hander at Honda.
You've just seen Walters, in fact, off in the distance as he comes round this corner down towards the lake. He slips by a car there that's parked on the side of the road. Round the lake corner and on to the main straight with 3 laps remaining now. And there's Walters just disappearing up the top of the hill. So the gap is about 230 metres between second and third.
That's a great drive around Amaroo Park. Only centimetres off the racetrack. I don't know whether at home you can get the full drift of Amaroo Park with its off-camber corners and its short straights and kinks back to the left and right. But it certainly keeps the driver busy, and I'm sure you'd agree, Neil Crompton.
Certainly, and the terrifying thing, I think, for the armchair experts at the moment, Mike, is we're working on one for a Formula One car as well, so the ride will get even quicker.
Well, there are no kinks for Thomas Mazera in today's Formula Ford round here at Amaroo Park. He's got it all straightened out, coming down with 2 laps remaining. 1 lap remaining. Yes, last lap board is out, in fact, for Thomas Mazera. And he's doing it very comfortably indeed. This could almost be a slow-down lap for him, and he'd still take the checkered flag with ease.
Through Dunlop Loop. The final time, Thomas Mazera, car number 5, the Dale Car Industries entry. He leads in the Reynard to Mazda Corner. Then down to Honda, coming up on some of the slower cars at the moment. Walters has made a little up in the way of the gap. Was back a couple of laps back, almost to 200 metres, but it's not going to make any difference at all. They come down to the lake corner for the final time. The short straightaway brings them along to Camalco turn. Checkered flag being prepared. And the checkered flag goes out. 2 hands off the wheel. He keeps it straight, and that's Thomas Mazera. He'll go across the line to win this one comfortably. There's the second place driver coming in. That, of course, is Jeff Walters. And finishing in 3rd place, just coming out of the corner, is going to be Richard Carter. Confirmation of placings, Mazera the winner in the Reynard, 2nd spot going to Walters in the Elwyn, and 3rd place, good on you, Richard Carter in the Maytag.
David Ansell from Coca-Cola making the presentation to Thomas Mazera after today's round of the Coca-Cola Formula Ford Series here at Amaroo Park, and of course also a round of the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series. Thomas, congratulations. You continue to lead both series. Superb driving again today, and I guess the easy place, if anything is easy about it, to do it, is out in front.
Yeah, the hardest part is to make the break earlier in a race, and the rest just, stay there, not to make a mistake, and, keep doing good times.
Conditions today, with the rain holding off as it is, must be perfect because it's nice and cool. The track is now dry, and in fact, you were going around very close to record times.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I beat the record again.
Thomas, you, as I said, the leader in both series, but I understand you may not finish the series because the car's been sold.
The car goes to New Zealand at the middle of August, and we finished last race for us be at Calder, 11th of August.
Well, what's in store for you? Are we going to continue to see you at the racetrack or what?
I hope I just can hire some other car and, finish the series, though.
Well, we hope so. Congratulations on a fine win here today.
Thank you.
Thomas Mazera, leader in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series at Amaroo, and also, as I said, still the leader in the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series. Now, here is Neil Crompton.
Thanks, Wilco. Okay. Well, the big news in motor racing circles this week is not so much round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, but in fact the big news that a winning combination that's been so successful in the past has now broken up. Peter Brock and Larry Perkins will not go to the mountain this year, looking for their 4th James Hardy victory. It comes as no surprise that the two of them have now broken up. In fact, their troubles go back some 12 months to Le Mans, where ultimately, of course, Larry Perkins went out of the race, which, of course, at the time didn't please Peter Brock. Brock and Perkins have had a very long and successful association. Perkins, in fact, has not only been co-driver at Bathurst and Australian Touring Car Championship rounds, but also chief engineer in the team, which, of course, is a very important role. Larry Perkins and Peter Brock both didn't want to talk to us today, and so one wonders just exactly how the team's going to shape up in the latter part of season 1985, particularly in view of the fact that they no longer have their Sporting Evolution Commodore. Perkins, in fact, cites one of the major reasons for leaving the team as what he called undue outside influences in the mobile Holden dealer team operation. So with that in mind, we thought we might talk to some of Brock's fellow competitors and perhaps speculate on how Brock and the team may be placed at Bathurst this year.
Well, I suppose all these splits are difficult for a while for teams. I was involved in one, and the other bloke still goes around kicking dogs because I own dogs. But they'll get over it, and he's always a hard bloke to beat. But I've always enjoyed trying to beat him, so I don't think that changes. It doesn't change anything for me.
I know in my case, when I drove with Peter, I did exactly what I was told and what I was there to do, and was drive the middle part of the race, and I'm sure that there are other drivers around that will do the same job.
There's no such thing as an indispensable man, and that's how I feel that Brock's operation is, irrespective of who leaves, or from my team or any of the other professional teams. It doesn't matter who leaves, you'll always find somebody to fill the hole.
Thank you, Neil Crompton. Well, obviously the Holden dealer team has its problems looking ahead to the James Hardy 1000. And there have been a number of Australians with a few other problems overseas, including Jeff Brabham, who was a starter in the United States Grand Prix last weekend. Last weekend, the IndyCar set visited Meadowlands in New Jersey for the running of the US Grand Prix, virtually in the shadow of the Big Apple. The Grand Prix was held at Caesars Palace car park circuit in Las Vegas last year, and this year's site was just as narrow, with all the turns and very few straights. For a while, it looked like a repeat of this year's Indy 500, with Danny Sullivan and Mario Andretti going at it all the way to the wire. Sullivan pitted to replace a front stabiliser wing and take on fresh rubber, but no sooner had he returned to the racetrack when he looped the car. Despite frantic pleas for assistance, Danny couldn't fire the turbo, and his hopes of a double were dashed.
Somebody shut the door, not paying attention to the blue flags. There seems to have been a lot of that out there.
Aussie Jeff Brabham moved to third in the Coors entry, former world champion Emerson Fittipaldi to second, and the lead seemed safe and secure in the hands of super vet Mario Andretti in the Beatrice Lola. Andretti's race was to end abruptly. Rammed from behind by Bobby Rahal, he speared into Brabham, and their two cars were out of the race.
I didn't know anything was going on, so suddenly I had a big bump up the rear and it just spun me around. So, I don't know what happened there.
Well, an unfortunate day for you, but you'll be back at Cleveland. Good luck.
Well, we'll be back and we're running up front, so I'm happy. Lady Luck can't keep against us all the time.
In the dash to the flag, Al Unser Jr. came from nowhere to edge out Fittipaldi, with Al Unser Sr. taking third. From New Jersey to Adelaide, and the 8th round of the Australian Formula 2 Championship was held last Sunday, and as expected, Peter Glover secured pole position in his Cheetah. The current champion made no mistakes at the start and quickly set up a slender lead over Peter Macro, who has been tagging him all year long for the title. The 20-lap race was free of any serious incidents, apart from Neil Richardson in car 10, who found his own exit point from the racetrack, and David Crabtree in car 77, who appeared to lose his way. Glover was not really troubled throughout the race and held on to his 4-second lead over Macro, while South Australian Paul Thomas was a respectable third. With only one round remaining to decide the championship, Glover is a short price favourite to clinch the title at Amaroo Park next weekend. And if you think the oval track scene isn't healthy in Australia, check out the head count at Sydney's Liverpool Raceway last Sunday. The fans turned out in droves to see their heroes go wacky on the clay tacky-tracky, and they weren't disappointed. Brad Pollock obliged by testing the strength of the concrete wall and lost, while former touring car ace Gene Cook of Tasmania continued his mainland winning sequence by chalking up another big money victory over the locals. The precision over, it was time to get down to the collision of the Demolition Derby. 97 thrill seekers took off in all directions, ensuring Sydney's chiropractors were all gainfully employed the following morning. And welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway as the cars move into position now prior to the start of Heat 2 of the Nissan Super Series. Of course, Heat 1 produced a few thrills this afternoon. Let's take a look at what happened when Alan Grice got a little aggressive on John Bowe coming down to Honda Corner. A whop in the door or on the back guard sends Bowe out in the direction of the photographers.
Grice was able to pick it up and go on, and there's Alan Grice there. Inverted grid, of course, sees Jeff Portman off one. Masterton off the front row with him, then Seaton and Rogers in the second row, Bond and Johnson in the third, Richards and Scott in the fourth, Grice and McKay in the fifth, and Fury and John Bow in the sixth. Bow.
Grice will have a bit of trouble winning it from back there this time.
Well, we'll see how good he is.
Yeah, and Grice leads the series too with 2:34 with now 10 seconds remaining prior to the start.
Now, this should be a good start. Jeff Portman and Steve Masterton on the front row. The flag is up. And it's down, and Masterton gets the best of it from Portman. Rogers moves up quickly. Then Johnson on the outside, and car number 7 coming up very quickly indeed. And Colin Bond has also made a lightning start. Oh, one, it could have been Portman there with a spot of bother, or is it Masterton?
Masterton, Mr. Gear.
Mr. Gear, and it's gone from first to last over the top and dropping
Portman's
down
in front
to the Dunlop loop. Oh, there's number 3 upside down, and that is Peter McKay, but he is quite okay. He's hit the zebra tyres. Conveniently positioned there to catch all Nissans. One Nissan is missing. I think I said that earlier. Into Dunlop loop.
There's
the
how it
replay.
happened.
He's got a touch from behind as well. From who? Will
somebody's escaped there.
Well,
very
John Bow that was, and Steve Masterton mixed up in there. So that's amazing. Oh, no, it's all happening. John Bow goes out as a result of it. And is that Gary Rogers?
Gary Rogers, rather, yeah.
Yeah, car number 5. Well, that's, what, 3 down, 9 to go. John Bow, you kiss goodbye to $25,000 after that little exercise. And car number 9, Gary Rogers.
Well, there's 3 that have gone...
Oh, and car number 11, Steve Masterton, limping around as well. God, they're off left, right and centre. So...
Portman's in front.
Yep.
Colin Bond in second place.
Richards, I think, now up to third as they head up Bitcher Pave Hill again.
They'll have to watch the debris coming around this section of the track.
So Portman drops down in there nicely indeed. The other driver was involved was Glenn Seaton. And the number 10 car, I think, that clipped the wall last time, but we'll pick up that for you a little later. There's the wreckage. I think man with cardiac arrest at the moment would have to be Fred Gibson, the Nissan team manager, who I think is ready to put his resignation in. Whoever devised the series. Jeff Portman looking pretty good out there. Bond in second, Richards third, Grice is the next one through, and they were followed by Dick Johnson.
It's George Fury.
Not a huge split over them as they go down to the Lake Corner. Through the bend. Portman hanging on.
Portman, the twice Australian rally champion in 1981 and 2. And behind him, a man who's also claimed that title before, Colin Bond. And so when you sit down and try and analyse this, I'd say that with Fury so far back in this one, and with Bond and Grice up here, and of course Grice doing battle with Richards, and Grice again looking good for the money at the end of this one. So Grice sneaks through on Richards, only just. Jim takes evasive action. And
Johnson in amongst those as well, wanting to pick up the pieces.
Well, he's had a bit of help, Grice, but he is up to third.
Yes, he's made a good run to third. Put him on top with points, providing the stewards don't want a replay of Heat 1. So Grice makes it up to third. Back behind him, Richards is fourth and Johnson is fifth. As they come through Mazda Corner, down to the left-hander at Honda. Just look at them picking up the back wheels, and in particular car number 4, Alan Grice. Whether Grice can pull back any more spots from there, it will depend greatly on the pace being set at the front of the field here by Portman. Portman, Bond, Grice, Richards and Johnson. Seaton, who of course was involved in the smash, still continuing on in the race.
And of course with Fury in 6th spot in the race, we've got 3 rally champions in the top half dozen. That kind of experience will come in handy out here today, the way things are going.
There's Bondy and Alan Grice right behind. Jim Richards getting plenty from Dick Johnson. Is Bond taking the rally championship in 71, 2 and 4. Fury in 77 and 80, and Portman in 81 and 82. So that just about covers the history of Australian rallying as they scathe by the wreckage at the top of the loop. Look at the way that Alan Grice punishes this poor little Nissan Pulsar. But the only way you can describe it, the front wheel folded under. Look at this, inside rear, off the deck by about 6 inches. Front right-hand guard all crumpled. And I'd say Alan Grice would be posting quickest lap time at the moment. In fact, I might try and get the watch on him.
Interesting you should say that, Neil, because in some of the shots you can notice, in fact, the first three cars going into the corners, you'll see that Grice hits the brake about 300ths of a second later than the other two, and thereby makes up that quarter of a car length on almost every sharp corner.
I noticed that with John Barr.
He didn't touch the brakes that time.
Used him as an anchor. There's Glenn Seaton looking for the Nissan repair tent.
It's good to see the thermo fan working.
You'll have to get in the waiting line.
Yes, he want to be first in. So Alan Grice has been the big mover again in Heat 2 this afternoon, still tailing Colin Bond as they go past the Rex down near Valvoline corner. Portman's still in front. I think this will be Portman's first race win of the series.
They'll think this is Christmas. He hasn't been sighted up until now.
Oh, here's Bond leaning on the back of Bond, Grice rather, on the back of Bond as they come out of Honda corner, going down towards the lake with about 1 1/4 laps still to go.
I can't wait to read the colourful description written by Peter McKay after this race meeting. That'll be a fun one.
Portman leads, Bond, Grice, Richards and Johnson. That's the order. They're coming in to take the signal with 1 lap to go. Now, can Grice pull one of his last lap charges out of the suitcase? Let's wait and see. Sits right in behind Bond. Is he going to make a run down the outside? Yes, right at the last moment, and try and take him over the top and see if he can race him down to the next corner. Bond hangs on. Grice now tucks down on the inside, wants to get the run out of this corner. Look at Johnson setting up for the run as well.
Oh,
watch out for the parked cars, boys. That was close.
Grice really is getting very willing, isn't he?
Look at Richards. Richards got the short back and sides about 3 laps ago. I don't think he's forgotten it yet. Down to Honda corner for the final time. Portman goes through. As they come out of the bend and go down towards the scrap is still continuing. Hands out the window.
Bond in second. Johnson's got up to third. He's got the best of Grice.
Whether or not he can hang on, Johnson, because that's where this action is. But Portman's going to come out of the last corner. Grice is making a run as well. So it'll be Portman across the wire, and he'll take it. Big cheers coming up from the crowd. Nissan executives have dropped off the railing. Bond takes second, Richards takes third, Grice is fourth, and Dick Johnson will take 5th place. Well, what a Nissan Super Series race here today. 2 heats. Confirmation of placings coming up. Jeff Portman, the winner. 2nd place going to Colin Bond, and 3rd place going to Jim Richards.
Back at Amaroo Park, Jeff Portman looks a little white and shaken. Jeff, you thought rallying was rough and tough.
Yeah, I did. I wondered for a while there while there was no one out there behind me, but then I realised when I come around again, half the field was decimated.
I don't know whether, again, things happen so quickly out there, whether you were able to see the first lap incident over the top. Poor old Peter McKay, I can't wait to read his very colourful account of today's meeting.
I'm sure it'll be colourful. No, I didn't know anything about that until I came around and there the cars were.
Yeah, well, he had a little bit of a nudge and ended up over and over and up against those concrete-filled tyres. Not a nice place to be, but he's okay. It was really helter-skelter out there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I'll be rushing home tonight to have a look at it on the telly, I think.
You've been a little bit back in the field in the rounds up to date. It was nice to see you holding pride of place for once.
Yeah, I thought that too myself. I thought you've been back there for long enough, and once you're out there, try and stay there.
Of course, Mr. Grice over here was very intent on not having things finished that way. You took the first heat today. You had to use a little bit of muscle to do it, though.
Oh, what a terrible thing to say.
Come on.
No, they're both good races. Unfortunate to see the damaged cars. There were the same sorts of damaged cars at Adelaide, which is only last week. And I think it should be said that the Nissan blokes that put the motor cars together in 1 week and got them here looking as good as they did, well, they surprised all of us. We really didn't think there'd be 12 cars here, but thank you very much on behalf of all the 12 drivers to the Nissan blokes for their great work.
You had to say that. I think you blokes are pulling the biggest con deal of all time on poor old Freddie Gibson.
Freddie who?
Listen, you not only win today's round overall, but you are now the overall leader in the series, and that $25,000 is looking very handy.
That's pleasant.
I'm sure all my creditors heard it.
Okay, congratulations. Alan Grice, winner of today's round of the Nissan Super Series here at Amaroo Park, and also the series leader. Right now, we're going to take you to Neil Crompton.
Adding some spice to this weekend's sports sedan and GT race, an old stager, a man in a new vehicle. Kevin Bartlett, the new Pantera, is a fascinating motor car.
It's a good-looking beast, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite a good thing. We've raced it twice, once at Oran Park and the other time at Winton. We're pretty fortunate at Winton and one in the wet. It's not going to rain here, obviously, but yeah, it's quite a good car. Concept's fantastic. Barry Locke's the builder and designer of the car, and it's owned and sponsored by the toy shop mainly, and it's got various sponsors on the car, which obviously people will see as it goes around. The concept's good. There's a long way to go with it as far as the chassis is concerned, and the engine power plant we have in has got a measly 500 horsepower.
A measly 500 horsepower toy.
Yeah, we've got a good engine coming. It's got 640, but I want to get the chassis right first.
It must take you back to the old Formula 5000 days.
Very reminiscent of a Formula 5000, in fact. It feels like a Formula 5000, really, with more aerodynamics, which it has got, which it is. I'm not quite at the rowdy stage as I was with Formula 5000s, of course, and I'll drive it accordingly to, well, depends how we get the chassis right. If it gets better, I'll drive it harder, but that's all.
And plans to continue driving this car later in the year?
Well, that's certainly up to the toy shop. I would say yes. We've got on pretty well. They're very nice people and very devoted to many, many things in motorsport.
It must be very hard to get in and out of a Group A car and then into a car like this.
Well, lately it hasn't been too hard to get out of a Group A car because I haven't been in one. I haven't even done any testing as far as the Mitsubishi is concerned, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, yes, we'll get a few miles under the belt with it in time for the start of the Endurance Championship here and at Oran Park.
What about teething problems with the car? Inevitably, with a purpose-built motor car like this, there's drama. There doesn't seem to have been too many.
Well, there have been a few little niggly problems, but they're behind-the-scenes problems, and we've been able to fix them without them being apparent on the racetrack.
Happy with yesterday's form?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you throw the cat amongst the pigeons in today's race.
Oh, very nice, yes. the white pussy cat.
Thanks, Kevin. Kevin Bartlett looking good in the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series. Here's Mike to read the grid.
Thank you very much, Neil Crompton. Well, Kevin Bartlett, of course, there in that wild-looking Pantera, ready to come out onto the racetrack. Might be timely now to have a look through the grid, how they'll line up the top 12 today. From pole position is, in fact, car 5, Kevin Bartlett in the Pantera with a 50.27. Starting out of 2 is number 41, Mike Griffin in the Mazda RX-7. From 3 is car 3, Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche. From 4, car number 77, John Burke in the Celica. From 5, car 50, Peter McLeod in the Mazda RX-7. From 6 is car 14, Keith Carling in a Mazda. From position 7, 104, Gary Scott of Queensland in the Nissan Bluebird. From 8, car 49, Bob Tyndall in the Tirana. From 9.57, John Vernon in the Escort. From 10.43, Ian Stones in a Mazda. From 11, 105, Glenn Seaton in the Nissan Pulsar. Rounding off the top 12, number 11, Bill Attard in the Mazda RX-7. Then, of course, Chris Hones, Simon Harricks, who I don't think will be starting due to problems earlier today. Graham Nolan, Mal Rose, Albert Cedars, Michael Caruso, Nick Middenway, Ken Davidson, Wally Kramer, Graham Bailey, Michael Jacobson of Victoria, Ray Butterworth and Steve Wosley. So it's a fairly strong-looking field. 25, probably take out 1 or 2 there. 23 starters. Simon Harricks, I don't think will be starting. There's 23 starters, and of course, it's over 10 laps, the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series, round 4.
Lap record for this category is 50.9 seconds, held by Brian Thompson in that Mercedes of his. And Kevin Bartlett has qualified under that time. It'll be interesting to see if he can, in fact, better the lap record in this race. I wouldn't mind betting that he can with a clean start.
I think he probably can. In fact, Gary, the car is, well, as Kevin described before, a pretty mean-looking beast, and he wasn't wrong. Brian Thompson, just talking of him, is in Canada this weekend, so won't be competing at this round, which is in fact the final round of the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series. There's Mike Griffin in the RX-7 Mazda. So yes, indeed, the lap record under threat, and the circuit now very dry, whereas the first round, or the first heat of this, a preliminary earlier on today, conditions were very slippery and greasy. And in fact, Kevin Bartlett and John Burke in car number 77, the Toyota, had a magnificent battle which had the crowd on their toes earlier on today just to warm things up. And we're looking forward to now what I hope will be a repeat performance of the same kind of action. So KB getting a heart starter here by the look of it, just to get him back in gear again.
I think they've need a charge.
I knew he was getting on, but I didn't know he had a plug-in pacemaker.
I tell you what, if they fire that thing up on the pacemaker, it'll blow him through the roof. But Kev's been around, wants that track record back, as Gary has already mentioned. And we also look forward to seeing Kevin Bartlett back in Group A in the Starion, of course, for the Endurance Championship Series.
Well, up until the last meeting here at Amaroo, Kevin Bartlett was the fastest ever man around Amaroo Park in the old Lola Formula 5000 car, but he was surpassed at the last meeting by John Bowe in the Formula Mondiale. So we await with interest for round 4 of this series. Meantime, we'll take a break and be back after this.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park in Sydney as our coverage of the Australian Touring Car Championship continues. That's still to come at the moment. The Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series round 4. Don't forget the 10th round of the championship for touring cars will be held at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway next weekend. 7's exclusive coverage, of course, continues right through, so make sure you join us as we see whether Jim Richards can put together wins in the 9th and 10th rounds. There's Mike Griffin lining up now for the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan race. Peter Fitzgerald all the way up from Victoria in the Stanley Electronics Porsche. He's been very, very quick off the mark here. John Burke next to him, of course, in the Celica. It's not your average Celica. John's very quick around this course, and I guess the key to this for Kevin Bartlett is getting off the line. Peter McLeod, who ran so well at Lakeside a couple of weekends ago, in company with Gary Scott. There's KB. I think the engine's far enough back. That thing lights up coming off the line. It'll leave enough rubber for the rest of them to be able to skate up to the top of the hill. John Burke's machine there. 2GO backed Celica. Mike Griffin's Mazda RX-7. Much modified RX-7 too. And of course Kevin Bartlett with pole position, 50.27. Real pity that Brian Thompson isn't here today. It'd be nice to have seen the scrap between them. There's Gary Scott from Brisbane in the Armstrong Nissan entry. And he'll be starting off position 7. Just look at the field. They're already round the corner and back down the next straight. Not far away, flag ready to come up. Watch the acceleration of Bartlett's Tommaso Pantera. And it gets plenty of bite coming off the track. Bartlett grabs another gear, and it is goodbye, boys, as the Stanley Electronics Porsche, driven by Fitzgerald, tries to catch sight of it as it goes over the top of Bitchapave and now drops down into Dunlop Loop for the first time. Fitzgerald is up into second, then followed by Burke. Griffin is the next one through, followed by McLeod, then Gary Scott rounding off the 6 as they go through Dunlop and work down towards Mazda Corner.
Yeah, so Bartlett gets power to the ground pretty quickly. Then it was John Burke who came out with a pretty snaky sort of a start when he grabbed second gear. He's in third. Fitzgerald second, as you mentioned. Griffin, McLeod. Bob Tyndall in there behind Gary Scott as well. So KB out to try and take this lap record. Conditions much drier than they were this morning. But the interest in the genuine sports sedan and GT car ranks, I guess, must be for second, third and fourth, with Fitzgerald heading Burke and Mike Griffin. John Burke in the turbocharged Toyota Celica behind the rear-engine Porsche. These two have been locked in battle throughout this series, which concludes today. Peter Fitzgerald the leader with a total of 21 points. John Burke sharing third place at the moment with Tyndall, a total of 8 points. Mark Trenoweth not competing, nor is Brian Thompson.
There's the rest of the field running away, and Bartlett opening that gap all the time. Peter McLeod is back behind Griffin, and then Tyndall followed by Gary Scott of Queensland.
Last time round it was a 51.44.
This is good.
Oh, yes, and John Burke gets through.
I see we've got a humpback down here that's spun around, little
John Vernon.
So, Peter Fitzgerald has been passed here. That's dropped him back into third spot. Next one is Griffin. So John Burke moves to second, Fitzgerald to third, Griffin to fourth.
As about to say before that KB has done a 51.44, so he's down to within a little less than half a second of that lap record. And he's winding it up more and more all the time.
But he's not getting all that far away, though, from John Burke, is he?
No. Celica's a pretty nicely built little motor car. And John came out here on Wednesday. He also came down from Gosford on Friday. As Glenn Seaton goes whistling off into the boondocks again for the second time in 2 races.
He likes that part of the track.
Loves it.
Here's Kevin Bartlett in the Pantera.
Burke is close.
Well, the Brian Hilton Toyota 2GO entry looking very good here at the moment in second place. And can Berkey wind up the turbo and get this fascinating beast of Kevin Bartlett's? I think he has. Across the top, on the inside, the new leader, car 77, John Burke. So is Bartlett in trouble? Fitzgerald in third, still knocking on the door. And talking of that, KB did just that in the first heat this morning, because you'll notice on the left-hand door of John Burke's car, a nice old graze, where KB did just that and ran the wheel down the side for a while.
There's hardly anywhere on this circuit, though, for Bartlett to drive that car in a straight line.
Well, he's got about 500 odd brake horsepower. Every time he puts his foot on the pedal, it wants to turn round. And
his only real shot is going to be the Bitchapave Hill the next time.
You've got to admire, though, what John Burke's done with this Celica and how successfully he's campaigned this car for, well, how many seasons now? 4 or 5?
4 or 5. They come through Wonderlick Corner, and Burke with a puff of smoke. The hand goes up. Goodbye to Burke. Fitzgerald now goes back into the lead. Kevin Bartlett in second. Mike Griffin is up to third now, sitting in behind the Pantera, as Fitzgerald takes the lead. Hard to know whether Bartlett's showboating or not. Just having a little exploratory move there on Fitzgerald, who's got the Porsche sideways. And Griffin coming right in behind Bartlett.
Well, the others are all bunching up there as well. We've got a glimpse of Bob Tyndall, Peter McLeod and Gary Scott in that second group of cars. So this is going to become a very good 6-way battle, with Fitzgerald the leader at the moment from Bartlett, Griffin, Tyndall. Griffin comes out on the inside for a run through the right-hander onto the straight. Now, KB's certainly not circulating the way that one would expect, and there's no danger of the lap record being knocked over here at the moment.
He's either got a problem. Bisbee's certainly busy taking the car through the corner there. Moving off down towards Mazda. Fitzgerald just there. Bartlett in second, then Mike Griffin, the Nippon 41 entry.
Griffin's car, as I've mentioned a couple of times before here in Amaroo, was the first ever Mazda RX-7 imported into Australia, and since then has been run as a Group E car, a Group C car, and now becomes a sports sedan.
Here's Bartlett. Bartlett on the outside of Peter Fitzgerald. Didn't go ahead with it. Fitzgerald gets a little skatey coming out of the corner. Tyndall's moved up behind Griffin. McLeod's there, and so too is Gary Scott in the Nissan Turbo. Once again, back across the line at Amaroo and up the hill. This is where the Pantera should be just hauling the Porsche in. It is at this stage. It's at the wrong end of the hill, the top end.
Yes, doesn't quite get him before he runs out a straight road. And once they get onto this long loop at the back, the Porsche comes into its element.
Give him some space, though, and let him clear the road, and I think we'll find that KB can disappear.
He disappeared in the first 3 laps. They managed to pick him up. It wouldn't be the most comfortable of racetracks to be sitting in amongst traffic. Amaroo Park.
Mike Griffin said to me before, after the first heat, all he could hear was KB somewhere around the car, but he couldn't see him out of any of the screens. So it was just lurking, and he was sort of driving with braille.
Well, he could drive past you and you wouldn't see him. The car's that low to the ground.
Correct.
In fact, KB said, Mike, I can't see you in the rear vision mirror, and Griffin said, well, I can't see you out the front, so it doesn't matter.
They come up Bitchapave Hill again. Fitzgerald now. KB maybe might be leaving this to the last couple of laps. And Fitzgerald will lead, but he leaves a gap there.
Oh, yes, a very big gap.
But it's too twitchy, the Pantera. No, it's not. He gets the nose in front again. Takes over the lead going down to Mazda corner. That should really get Mike Griffin on the boil.
Well, Peter knows that the 9 points for, or should I say the 6 points for second place in this race will comfortably give him the championship, so one doesn't have to be silly. But look at this battle here now between Fitzgerald and Griffin. Mike Griffin, who has been the centre of some controversy in the sports sedan ranks in the last couple of meetings, has really come good to today, and has got the car mobile a lot quicker than he has had in the past.
Yeah, well, he's had a lot to say about the hybrid cars, notably Mark Trinath and that big Jag that he brings down from Queensland. Well, that car's not here today.
He put that away, and then all of a sudden Bartlett arrived with the Pantera.
Yeah, that's right. But he's got no bitch against Fitzgerald. It's head-to-head between the two of them here.
Towards Master Corner again. Griffin getting closer to Fitzgerald, and now Bartlett starting to pull away again from the Porsche. So Bartlett's coming up behind a group of slower cars. Might impede his progress. Fitzgerald with Griffin in the 41 running down towards the lake as Bartlett gives the slip to some of the slower machinery. Heading down to the right-hander. Here's Fitzgerald with Griffin sticking to his tail. Tyndall, I think, is the next one back behind them.
1 lap to go. Bartlett leads Fitzgerald and Griffin, but Fitzgerald is going to win the series. KB is going to win the race.
Him and Bartlett, the NatWest Finance Pantera coming down to Mazda Corner. They're just trying to steer away from some of the slower cars, stay out of harm's way. As he comes out of Honda Corner, runs down towards the Lake Corner now. The scrap still continuing between Fitzgerald and Griffin, about 100 metres back behind him. In fact, they've gained appreciably. The small straight now that brings them up to Wonderlic Corner, and here comes KB. Good to see the checkered flag for Kevin Bartlett, the NatWest Finance Pantera. He takes the sports sedan final here this afternoon from Peter Fitzgerald, and Mike Griffin will finish third. Very interesting race, full of incidents and full of interest from start to finish. Let's recap the placings for you. The win going to KB in the Di Tommaso, second spot to Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche, and third place going to Mike Griffin in the Mazda.
Paul Fletcher is here from Comalco Wonderlic to make the presentation to Kevin Bartlett, winner of today's round of the Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park in a very, very slick looking Di Tommaso Pantera. And I don't know about anybody else, but if it were mine, KB, I'd be afraid to take it on the racetrack.
Yeah, it should stay in the toy shop, shouldn't it?
Oh, it looks too nice.
Yeah, good car.
You led early, but they got past you.
Yeah, I must have had a lapse of concentration or something.
Oh, I find that hard to believe.
Well, it might have been that. I just wanted to see how Peter was driving. He's driving with us in the Mitsubishi team, you see.
You just wanted to come
to
the
big
big
finish.
finish.
Yeah, have a look at the back of me. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But the man that wins the series here at Amaroo Park for this season is Peter Fitzgerald. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hard work?
Very much. Pantera is very quick, and it was all I could do to try and keep Kevin behind me, and I made a mistake in the loop, and that let him past, and then it was all I could do to keep Mike behind me.
Yeah, Mike Griffin's pressed you very hard. In fact, I think he's finished equal third in the series overall, but he's really come good towards this latter stages of the series, hasn't he?
I'd like to say this, it's one of the cleanest races I've ever been in. There's plenty of opportunities for Kevin and Mike to give me a nudge, and they didn't do it, and I'd like to say I'd drive with those guys any day. I'd like to thank Comalco Wonderlic for putting the series on. For sponsors, Stanlight Electronics, Bob Hiscock and the boys from Advent Automotive, and of course Yokohama. Thank you very much.
Okay, congratulations to Peter Fitzgerald, winner of today's round, winner of the series, in fact, of the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedans here at Amaroo Park for 1985. Tons more to come too at Amaroo Park this afternoon. We're going to take a break. Back shortly.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park Raceway. Well, after 8 rounds and week after week, JPS BMW after BMW, the spell is finally broken. And Colin Bond has put the Alfa Romeo GTV on pole position for today's race. And looking a little pensive about it as well, but you must be delirious.
Well, we are actually, Mike, I must admit. But, of course, the 2.5 litres, we've got to get up the hill first. And I think if we can get up the hill first and over the hill in first position, then as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be a great race. You know, if a couple of cars get past us, then the work's going to be cut out to try and get past them as the race progresses. But I'm confident the car's going to be going very strong at the finish of the race, and we'll be there.
Well, 0.28 of a second clear of Jim Richards and 0.27 of a second clear of Dick Johnson. Doesn't mean much. That's the top of the hill.
No, but it sounds terrific.
Yeah, doesn't it?
No, it just proves, I think, that, you know, the Alfa's obviously a great handling little motor car, and when you put on a circuit like this, where it's really handling and not power is the thing, it sort of shines. But of course on the longer circuits, the 2.5 litres against the 5 litres, we are a little bit slower on, you know, in the long straights. But as I said, I think the hill up here is going to be our biggest problem just to start off the race. As we progress, you've still got to get onto the straight nice and quick, and I think that if the tyres stay on the car, and I'm confident we can, you know, we'll be quick onto the straight all the time, the bigger cars start getting slower as the race progresses. Hopefully that's the case, then we can get past them.
Well, yesterday's weather was perfect. Today dawned a little grey, a little overcast, and the thought of rain later this afternoon.
Well, I prefer it to be dry because I think we know that when the track's dry, we can go around here very quickly. If it's like it is now, a little bit damp and may rain, then it's the tyre selection choice, I think, is the most critical one. We would all elect to go on fairly hard compound tyres because of the 52-lap race around here. It will be extremely hard on tyres. You could then, you know, go on a softer compound tyre, hoping then that the rain may come and the track will stay cool, and those tyres will be the right choice then, because in damp conditions, the very hard tyres get very slippery.
Well, Enrico Zannarini from Alfa Romeo. Enrico, you look quite happy. I don't know why.
Well, what more can I say? I think that yesterday's performance has proven the virtues of Colin and the boys in the team, and I think it has given me a great amount of pleasure.
I know it has. Enrico Zannarini and Colin Bond, they're hopeful that it'll be an Alpha at the checkered flag first this afternoon, but it hasn't been that way since round 1 of the championship. Back here at Amaroo Park Raceway, we're preparing for round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. That's the Better Brakes 100. Let's see how they'll line up. From pole position, car 26, Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo. From 2, car number 17, Dick Johnson of Queensland in the Mustang. From 362, series leader Jim Richards in the BMW. From 4, 21, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand in the Volvo. From 5 is car 5, Peter Brock in the Commodore. From 6, 23, Tony Longhurst in the BMW. From 7 is 96, Tim Slako from Western Australia in the Rover. From position 8, 31, Neville Crichton of New Zealand in the BMW. From 9, number 7, David Parsons in the Commodore. From 10 is car 3, Ken Bagent of New Zealand in the BMW. From 11 is car 10, John Smith in the Corolla. And from 12 is car 22, Glenn Malloy in the BMW. And rounding off the rest of the starters, Gary Wilmington of the Jag, Brian Sampson, Drew Price, Jim Keogh, Mike Quinn, Laurie Hazelton, Chris Heyer, John Craft, Phil Parsons and Mike Minear. We're about 20 seconds away from the start of this important round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. The Better Brakes 100. And for only the 3rd time, we have a new man on pole position. It's Colin Bond of Sydney. The start will be vital for Bond and Jim Richards. The flag is up. And they're racing and getting away smartly as Colin Bond. He's won the start. Richards has muffed the start again. Francevic has dropped into 3rd. And now it's Dick Johnson going out, and Francevic goes too as Bond is slow to pick up a gear. Francevic looks for Johnson as they go to the top of the hill, and Queensland's Dick Johnson for the 2nd straight round has taken over the lead.
Peter Brock caught out wide.
Francevic is back in 2nd spot. Bond looking for the inside way on Francevic. Jim Richards followed by Peter Brock, and Gary Wilmington making a great start in the Jaguar as they come down towards Mazda Corner, but it's Queensland's Dick Johnson in front.
Wilmington came from 13th spot on the grid. He's made a lightning start.
Johnson through Honda Corner. 2nd spot being held down by Robbie Francevic, then Colin Bond, Jim Richards, Peter Brock. Next is Wilmington, David Parsons. They were then followed by Tony Longhurst, and then Tim Slako of Western Australia, Bagent, and of course Neville Crichton. They come out of the turn along the short straight to Wonderlic Corner. That's how close they go to the concrete wall there. Then back across the strike with Johnson opening the gap already over the Volvo. And here's Richards starting to come into it as he works his way on the outside now of Colin Bond up to the top of the hill. You'll see the split in a moment. Johnson goes through Francevic, then Jim Richards, and Brock has got through on the outside. Has he? Yes, of Colin Bond. So Bond, after sitting on pole, has gone back about 5 spots. This is where the interest is. New Zealander Robbie Francevic in the Turbo Volvo, and Jim Richards in car number 62.
Francevic having just a little trouble keeping the tail of that Volvo under control on the tight circuit here at Amaroo Park. Richards is just a little wary of him as they go into the corners. The Volvo tending to drift a little bit across the corners. Meantime, Johnson's opened up a pretty decent break going through the lake corner, about 60 metres. Francevic in 2nd, then Richards. 4th place, Peter Brock, then Colin Bond.
There's Jill Johnson, Dick's wife, doing the scoring and the timing. Hubby's in front, looking good at this stage. Here's Francevic. really steaming up the hill there in the Volvo Turbo. And, of course, right behind him is the series leader, Jim Richards. And the big problem for Richards is going to be, if he wants to really race them hard, he has to be very careful of tyre wear. Johnson's car easy on tyres. Francevic's isn't all that easy because of the amount of way the car moves around in the corners on those narrow wheels.
Francevic, in fact, is running a special compound this weekend in the Pirelli radials of the D3. He's got an unusual test set of tyres, which he believes will put him in pretty good stead. But Jim Richards at the moment all over the back of the Volvo as they go through the left-hander at Honda. And I think Richards now well positioned down towards the right-hander at the late corner. Who's going to be the bravest?
It'll be Robbie.
See if Richards can cut under him as they come out of the corner.
Oh, Frank says, get on with the boy. Francevic still holding second. Jim back in third. And Tricky Dicky at the front of the field in number 17, the Palmer Tube Mills Mustang V8.
Peter Brock is fourth, then Colin Bond fifth, followed by Tony Longhurst, and then David Parsons in the second of the dealer team Commodores.
Robbie Francevic blew a head gasket in this car again yesterday. They blew and locks the front right. Lets Richards through. Jim Richards to second place.
That's all it takes for Jim Richards. One brake lock-up, Richards is through, and Francevic will never pick up that second again, I don't believe.
Francevic broke an engine mounting also in practice yesterday, so they had their dramas and they blew an engine last Thursday. They've been working very hard to get the car competitive again, whereas the JPS team once again having a pretty trouble-free run in qualifying, and again looked pretty threatening, although Dick Johnson this time with a very healthy brake, so it's a la Lakeside. As Francevic closes the gap under brakes through the right-hander. Brock gets close behind Francevic, and Colin Bond still hanging on very nicely behind Brock as the flame comes ripping out of the exhaust pipe of the turbo Volvo.
I think the Bond team have gone for a hard compound tyre also. They plan to be around for the Alpha at the end of this race up towards the front.
Yes, for the first time in a long while, the Alpha team have gone for, again, the Pirelli radial, and they've gone for two different compounds. The front of the car's using the softer D5 compound, whereas the back of the car, they're using the D3s.
There's Richards going through. Francevic is the next one back behind him. And, of course, Peter Brock and 26 pole sitter Colin Bond in the Alpha GTV6. Well, it's almost a repeat of Lakeside with Johnson scurrying away, Richards in hot pursuit, then Francevic and Brock and Colin Bond. Tony Longhurst is well in the top 10. There's Enrico Zannarini. It all looked good on paper when he started off the front, but at the moment he's just back in the pack.
Talking about tyres and unusual combinations, Dick Johnson this weekend is using three different compounds of tyre on the four corners of the car, can you believe?
Well, it's
He's
working.
using a combination of A7, A17 and A18 Avon tyres.
Well, he's got the magic formula.
That's right.
It's certainly working.
To be a witch doctor to work that one out. Here's Colin Bond in 26, hanging in there behind Peter Brock as they go down towards Mazda Corner.
The interesting thing here with 52 laps total journey, and by no means put the glasses down at this stage, because the bigger cars, the heavier cars will have strife with tyres, but Dick Johnson at the moment making the most of the situation with a healthy gap over Jim Richards, and as we said before, his tyre combination putting him in very good stead. The gap between first and second, 2.6 seconds, and Dick Johnson shooting for what could potentially be his first Australian Touring Car Championship win this year.
There's Johnson coming across the start-finishing line at Amaroo Park. Richards, I would believe at this stage, gaining slightly. Robbie Francevic back on the pace in the 21 Turbo Volvo. Then Peter Brock and, of course, Colin Bond in the 26 machine. Dick Johnson carrying race cam pictures for us as he moves on to the back straight. I know you're busy, Dick. How's it going? Mike Raymond. Dick, I know you're busy. How's it going?
Oh, mate, everything's fine at the moment. We're just trying to look after the tyres.
Okay, you can't really stretch it too much, can you, with tyre wear at this track?
It's a long way to go.
Should your car be easier on tyres than the BMW?
See, we'll soon find out, Mike, I think.
Okay, let you get back to it. So Dick Johnson with it all to do, because I think at this stage, even the people on the hill here, and there's thousands of them, notice that Richards is starting to pull back that gap on Dick Johnson.
2.1 seconds, so he's closed half a second in one lap. And Johnson that time through didn't seem to make a clean gear change of it, so Richards really starting to close.
Dropping over the top of Bitcher Pave Hill and now down into Dunlop Loop. Johnson away quickly off the line, the same as Lakeside. Jim Richards in the 62 black BMW, dropping back as far as fourth and then coming back to put the pressure on the race leader.
Dick had to put a clutch in the car after Friday's practice session. They had some problems there. As we take race cam once again and look at Dick Johnson hard at work. Again, we see that oil light coming on where he gets oil surge in the bottom of the sump of the Mustang. And the red light flashes as he goes by Mike Minear to the right-hander at stop corner. You can see just how hard he works at the wheel. Then it's to the right-hander at Wunderlich.
Doesn't take long to get into the slower traffic here at Amaroo. Only 8 laps gone and already.
To 4th gear up the straight, and then he grabs 5th just briefly across the top of Bitchapave. Same gearing that he used at Lakeside. Found it very hard yesterday to try and get the right kind of gear ratios for the circuit because it's so tight and twisty.
Making sure the car doesn't get too skatey through that corner, starting to overheat the tyres or anything. So Johnson's clear, driving it nicely, coming down towards Mazda corner. There's the man stalking him, and that, of course, is Jim Richards. Francevic back in a consistent and solid third at this stage. There's Francevic going through as Johnson comes through Honda corner. Richards still making the break on him as they come down to the lake corner. Confirmation of placing so far. Johnson leading the race. Richards in second, and third place, Robbie Francevic.
11 laps gone, 41 remaining, and that's the view out the rear window of Dick Johnson's car with Jim Richards in hot pursuit.
He's certainly getting closer, coming down to Mazda corner, and all the time. Richards, who of course has dominated the Better Break Series here at Amaroo Park since it started. He's been very easy on tyres, Richards. Not down to any record-breaking laps. Slowly but surely he's been hauling back Johnson. And Francevic not that far back behind Richards at this stage.
Well, for Richards, it's been a win at Winton, Wanneroo, Adelaide, Calder, Surfers and Lakeside, with second placing at Sandown and, of course, a 5th back at Simmons. So it's not a bad performance from Jim Richards.
And he's won 9 races out of 9 starts here at Amaroo so far.
Yeah.
It's a good average. So Dick Johnson, after setting up a big lead in this 9th round of the Better Breaks 100 at Amaroo Park, finds the same old storyline coming into play. The man who missed the start is back on his tail again, and that's Jim Richards.
I am very surprised at the performance of the Volvo, though, Mike. He's overcome a lot of trouble yesterday and earlier in the week, and they're hanging in there very nicely indeed. And I would have thought that perhaps Brock would have been giving Francevic a little bit more courage just at this stage.
Well, the Volvo's very clearly in 3rd place, well ahead of Brock and Bond, but all said and done, Francevic's still got a lot of ground to make up on this pair.
And all the time, Richards getting closer to the back of the Mustang. Frank Gardner, the team manager of the JPS team.
Happy-looking soul.
Yeah.
He knows Jim's on the move. That'll brighten up his day. To the top of Bitchapave Hill again. Dick Johnson goes over Nissan Skyline, dropping into Dunlop Loop.
Next lap or two could tell the tale here.
The point situation in the Australian Touring Car Championship, of course, sees Jim Richards leading with 188, Johnson second with 146. And even when you accept the correction of points and drop the worst performance from Jim, which is a 5th, as I said before, he still has 173 points, putting him well clear of Johnson. So a high finish, even in the top dozen or so today, will see Jim Richards seal the touring car crown.
Now we'll find out how serious Dick is about winning the race. To the lake corner, Lakeside, he was probably 1 metre offline, and that's all it needed for Richards to zip the BMW down the inside of him and take over the lead. To the side of that BMW, the rear vision mirror might stir Johnson on as they head up the hill again. He's trying to conserve the tyres as well, Dick Johnson. And Jim Richards has been doing just that. That's how close they are as they drop down into Dunlop Loop. Both using an identical line. Richards having a little look there at the inside. That's how close they are. And Richards now down the inside. And there he goes through on the inside of Johnson. Left him no room, but that's tough. That's racing. And Jim Richards goes through to lead round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, the Better Breaks 100 here at Amaroo Park. And off he goes down towards the lake corner. Johnson still in second. Not even a smile yet from Frank Gardner.
Just looking a little smug, however. And news comes through, Mike, that car number 12, Gary Wilmington, has retired to the pits as well in the Jaguar.
That's unfortunate because he got a great start and moved up very quickly into 6th spot after 2 laps, but then steadily dropped back through the field. Obviously, something is amiss, the car not running anywhere near full potential, and whether or not they'll have an opportunity to rectify it remains to be seen. The laps go pretty quickly here.
It sounds like there's a miss in the car. You can probably hear in the background. And Wilmington broke a diff in this car yesterday, which they worked frantically to repair. And so you can see the complexities of the V12 Jaguar. The crew working on it at the moment. They've got around about an extra 50 or 60 brake horsepower out of this engine in the last few weeks. And with the new sponsorship that's being provided by Rolly Walker, Gary Wilmington, I think, is going to be more of a threat than a lot of people have reckoned.
Well, bad luck there for Gary Wilmington in the XJS Jag. Anything to be said for poor Gary with all the experiments they're carrying out with the car. He's not far away from home. It'll be a long way to have to tow the car back from interstate. There's Tony Longhurst at the moment running 6th in the race. And don't be surprised if Longhurst can't improve on that and get it up to maybe even 3rd by the time the checkered flag comes out.
It's 6th and closing at the moment onto the back of Colin Bond. They didn't have qualifying tyres for this car yesterday because it's a rather unusual size on the 323BM. But slowly but surely, Longhurst getting into the groove. The man who they are saying at this stage is tipped to partner Jim Richards in this year's James Hardy 1000 in October. And this most presentable, very delightfully built 323 BMW is being very well piloted by Tony Longhurst at the moment. Frankly, I think a little bit tidier than he was at Lakeside when we saw him a couple of weeks ago.
He's done most of his racing this season at this racetrack, so he knows the circuit very, very well indeed. He's run the rounds of the Better Break Series here. There's Peter Brock coming up and going through now, followed by Colin Bond, and then the one making the ground on Bond is Tony Longhurst in car number 23, driving for BMW Motorsport.
Mike Minear, the back of the Volvo, smoking just a little.
So Longhurst continues up Bitchupave Hill in pursuit of Colin Bond, looking at trying to pick up 5th place in this race.
Longhurst picked up a 7th place at the last round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, and that was his first appearance in that series, although, as you said before, has done very well in the Better Break Series so far. And this is where the development will head with the BMWs come season 1986.
There's Peter Brock,
car number 5. Has been under a little black shadow in the last few weeks, hasn't really performed up to full standard.
Here's Robbie Francovic just ahead of them, passing Jim Keogh and Drew Price, I think it is. And Peter Brock coming up behind those at the moment. There's John Harvey managing the dealer team affairs here at Amaroo Park.
56.3 doesn't see him lapping too quickly, as you can see by the board as he whistles past Jim Keogh. Slowly but surely, I would suggest that Peter Brock would be finding the weight of the Commodore to his disadvantage, and particularly in the way that it would punish tyres on the tight and twisty Amaroo circuit. In fact, it's no secret that Brock doesn't particularly feel at home here in this car.
Yes, he needs the wide open stretches, doesn't he, to really get into the spirit of things.
You're quite right there, Gary. Besides that, Brock was the fastest qualifier for the last Australian Championship round here at Amaroo, and that was 7 years ago. And in fact, on that day, Alan Moffat in a Ford led the race practically all the way, and Alan Grice pulled one of his specials in the last corner.
Talking about leading the race, Jim Richards does, but Johnson's having another crack at him here.
Well, he hasn't pulled away from Johnson.
Well, I think the big problem here is, as you can quite clearly see from race cam, the traffic, and there's plenty of it. Under 3 litre and 2 litre cars getting in the way. Chris Hire in the Audi. And it's not really so much a case of getting in the way, but where can you go? As I said before, tight and twisty. Not a lot of open space. They're coming now onto the back of the Glenn Malloy ex-Jim Richards BMW, the car which lost the wheel here at the last round of the Better Break Series. And look out, Chris Hire, because Dick Johnson needs the space.
Well, Johnson would appreciate that.
Malloy will, in fact, be selling this car very shortly and heading to the States for a couple of months. And already has a couple of nibbles on the vehicle as we watch Dick Johnson close again on Jim Richards coming out of the right-hander at Winfield.
They're coming up now on Glenn Malloy in the BMW, and we'll see how he goes.
Jill Johnson and the crew looking on. A busy scene down there in pit lane as the boards are sent out to the drivers. Johnson comes up now to the back of Glenn Malloy. Richards getting through, I think it's Bob Holden in the Sprinter, and there
Somebody's
is car number
missing,
21.
yeah.
Robbie Francevic out of business. So the Volvo pulls off to the side of the circuit, and the car that was holding down third place will not pick up any points in this ninth round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. So that's an ongoing disastrous week for the team.
That elevates Peter Brock to third place on the racetrack now, with Colin Bond still holding down fourth place.
In fact, change there, Gary, because Longhurst has got through on Bond as Robbie Francevic has a look at the plumbing of the Volvo. And their big problem has been trying to find out the right compression ratio. There's Mark Petch, the owner of the car, a disappointed man. Blew a head gasket yesterday, broken engine mounting. As we go back to our leader. And, of course, at the present time, Jim Richards in car number 62 still with a healthy gap over Dick Johnson, even though he has to thread his way through traffic. But even more interesting now will be just how quick this little BM can come through the field. Up to fourth place at the moment into car 23, displacing Colin Bond. So the BMW team looking good.
Doing it comfortably, Jim Richards in the 62 black BMW from Dick Johnson in 17. Brock is third in car number 5. Tony Longhurst is fourth. Colin Bond is fifth. And sixth place would be held down by David Parsons.
It's funny you should mention the 1978 round of the Australian Touring Car Championship before, Mike, because when you look back at times, you often hear people talking about the new Group A cars as though they were perhaps you know, nothing much more than about a road car. And people tell you about the great old days of A9X Tiranas and two-door Fords and so forth. In actual fact, these Group A cars qualified and are racing quicker than those cars were here 7 years ago, and by quite some margin.
Puts the lid on the knockers of Group A, doesn't it?
Yep. And in less than 12 months, they've been able to bring these cars up to full competitiveness.
There's Dick Johnson. We're following at the moment. Still trailing Jim Richards. But treating their tyres with a lot of care. Still quite a few laps to run in this ninth round.
They've completed 23 laps, in fact, Mike.
So 23 of 52 laps completed. And everyone worried about tyre wear here at Amaroo Park.
Well, Dick Johnson, they say that the opera isn't over until the fat lady sings. Are you going to burst into song before the end of the day?
I don't know, but he's the goddamnedest pursuer I ever goddamn pursued.
He's a tough cookie, isn't he?
Talk about Smokey and the Bandit, mate. This is ridiculous. He's been playing with us.
Dick, how are your tyres holding up?
Mate, I'm trying to look after him without letting him get too far away, and it's not an easy job around here, I'll tell you.
Do you feel you made the right choice mixing up the compounds?
Yes, I certainly did. The car feels really good at the moment. Really good. It just sort of gets a little bit taily out of corners, but no worse than anyone else's.
He hasn't got that far away from you, Dick.
No, I try not to let him either.
All right, we'll let you pursue Jim Richards. Hope it comes off for you as we get down to lap 52. Dick, thanks a million.
Thanks, Bill.
There's a good scrap that's been going on for a while between Neville Crichton in the second of the JPS BMWs, car number 31, and another Kiwi, Kent Bagent, the privateer, in car number 3, another of the BMs. And poor old Croaky Crichton has been getting a severe working over here from some of the lads today.
And not far in behind this pair, Mike, we've got Tim Slako, another Kiwi, although domiciled in WA, who's brought the Rover Vitesse over to the Eastern States for the first time, and is not doing all that badly for his first time around Amaroo Park, because it's a very tricky circuit to learn.
Driving the Alf Barbagallo Rover, coming out of Dunlop Loop, and he'll get stronger as the race goes on. Meantime, poor old Croaky Crichton here in 31 finds a car number 11, John Smith, in the little Toyota, going for a class win again here today. But John moves to the side of the road, and this great scrap continues. Let's recap the placings. Jimmy Richards leading round 9. Second is Dick Johnson, and third is Peter Brock.
Back at Amaroo Park in the 9th round of the Touring Car Championship, and Kart 10, driven by John Smith, is the Toyota Corolla, and Johnny Smith has won the 2-litre category in every round of the Touring Car Championship that he's contested so far in 1985, and he looks like doing it again today. He's in 10th position outright on the racetrack and really continues to mix it with the bigger cars. He qualified extremely well in 11th position on the grid, in fact, so he's made up one spot on the bigger cars, and this car will continue to circulate all day, you know that.
Yes, and his best performance was back at Winton with a 7th, so he'd be looking good today, particularly with a small car around here, and perhaps getting close to that or even bettering it. He lies 7th in the championship with a total of 98 points. Former Rookie of the Year at Bathurst, second to Roberto Marino in the Australian Grand Prix back in 1983, and I guess really is an open wheel specialist that joins Toyota Team Australia this year.
He's sandwiched at the moment between race leader Jim Richards and Dick Johnson.
Not doing a bad job passing Jim Keogh either in the Commodore.
He's been trying for a few laps.
Well, he's got Keogh, and it won't be long before Johnson arrives on his tail.
It's interesting, John Smith has been continually breaking lap records that was set by Peter Williamson, the 2-litre Celica from a few years back, so it just shows you how quick some of the Group A under 2-litre cars are as well.
Cars running in about the 55-second category.
Yes.
And good thinking there on the part of John Smith. Already, as he made his way onto the hill, he already had his arm pointing for Johnson to go around him on what side and moved across the course. So the thinking driver is John Smith. There's a few of them here today that are not.
Smithy, like a lot of our drivers, has been a former Formula Ford driver, Europe Series winner. And his other great claim to fame, of course, was winning the under 2-litre class at Bathurst back in 1981 with Peter Williamson when they were in the Toyota.
Here he comes up on Chris Hyatt. Number 53 takes higher as well.
He's certainly got it mobile at the moment. The little 1.6-litre twin overhead cam Toyota, a lovely piece of machinery. And if you ever have the opportunity to look at this car in the pits, particularly well engineered and from the racing division of Toyota in Japan.
30 laps gone in this 9th round of the Touring Car Championship. Looks like Neville Crichton just in behind John Smith at the present time. But up front, it continues to be Jim Richards leading the race from Dick Johnson, and Peter Brock holding down third, coming up fast on Jim Keogh.
I tell you, also coming up on the fast lane behind Peter Brock is Tony Longhurst. And I don't think it'll be long before Tony is there to put the pressure on, and there he is. Oh, Keogh
is yes, like the proverbial mad woman's breakfast.
Oh, and Tony getting all sideways as well as he tries to thread his way through. So the pressure really on here, and he can sense that this could be the big one for Tony Longhurst's career. They now have some clear road in front of them. Peter Brock down to the stop corner, and with around about 1 second gap over Tony Longhurst. There's Tony in the 323 BM.
Commodore as well, not too far away, and the very recognisable 2.5-litre Alpha.
John Harvey hard at work, working the sums out, but you don't have to be too bright at the moment to work out that Longhurst is catching, and is going to give Brock something to think about pretty soon. Of course, the great problem with the Commodore at present is the weight that the car carries, which we've talked about on a number of occasions, but it's got lead ballast in the back of it, and talking about the back, you see some blue smoke coming out from underneath the car on that occasion. In fact, David Parsons' car blew an engine yesterday in practice, and they changed engines overnight.
Because Brock loses a lot of that weight, doesn't he, after August 1?
Yes, he sheds about 75 kilos.
Going to the wholesale lead weight clearance in Melbourne.
Good sinkers. He made a dreadful mess of the left-hander there at Honda that time, got out in the boondocks again.
And Longhurst is closing, and Bond also is closing behind Longhurst. So
here's a scrap.
I'm wondering whether the back left-hand tyre of Brock's car might be deflating or something. The car's got some strange-looking wobbles.
Yeah.
Almost as though the fence had magnets on it, the way it was attracting the back of the car to the guardrail. So as they head up Bitchapave Hill over the top.
Yes, it looks like it's becoming a game of chicken. They could end up out in the rough for Brock.
Well, Brock still holding down third on the road, but Tony Longhurst, for the last 5 laps, has been gaining to the point now where he'll begin to challenge Brock within the next lap. And Brock running up on some traffic. There's the Brock team.
Yes, you're right about the tyre. Brock's going to come in, I think.
Well, there's certainly rumblings in the camp down there. Neil Burns and Martin Watt in conference. A sample of the Italian Momo wheels that they use and the Pirelli radial slicks, and Gary Wilmington's car in the background there, still out of business. So Tony Longhurst now right up behind Brock. Fourth placing in an Australian Touring Car Championship round wouldn't be too bad at his age, and it could potentially be a third. And I would say that there's definitely a problem with the Commodore at the moment. More than just a little smoke, and it's not just tyre smoke. Perhaps gearbox or differential.
Brock's got a little spurt on, but look how nimble the BMW is over the top, and as they drop into the loop, setting Brock up for an inside pass coming out of here. It'll be a beauty too. And there it is. Sorry, Bob. So Pete gets the go-by. Tony takes a bit of the top rail as he goes past.
What's the flashing light for?
Maybe he's not happy. He doesn't want anybody to pass him.
I don't see why not. Longhurst did that perfectly.
Yes. In case you can't get upset from hero to zero. Coming out of Dunlop corner, working down towards the right-hander at the lake. A great drive this from Tony Longhurst in the 23 car. We expect to see Brock maybe heading to the pits. You could understand if Brock was flashing the lights coming down the other part of the course to let his crew know that he was coming in. They're still up taking times, and they continue past the line. Now the next person who's going to be on Brock's tail is, of course, Colin Bond, who is closing very, very quickly in the yellow Alpha.
This takes you back to days of old when the two of them shared Tirana XU1s.
You're right about that smoke. It's still there too at the back of the Commodore.
Coming down towards Mazda corner again. Peter Brock fourth, Colin Bond fifth. I think that's about to change.
The car looks to be really slow out of some of these turns. Maybe one could even speculate that it's a gearbox problem. Perhaps he's not getting second or somehow. You can sit here and guess forever, but Brock certainly...
it's very sideways, very taily.
Real trouble.
Looks out the window.
He can't believe his eyes.
Bond goes by and Brock continues on.
The car just looks sort of lethargic for some reason, doesn't it?
Well, certainly not handling well for whatever reasons.
Still got some horsepower, obviously.
Yeah.
That stirred him on.
Have a look at the tyres, and they all seem to be black and round. Yep, doing the job. No,
it's that left rear that, if any of the tyres are off, it's that one.
Well, of course, you could overheat it quite easily here, and I suspect that's also happening, but I don't think that's the source of the smoke. As Glenn Malloy comes to the pits, he's got tyre problems.
Well,
that car, you remember, lost a wheel at the loop at the last meeting. So let's have a look at the surface of that tyre. It looked pretty clean, so I wonder why he's come in.
Peter Brock in fifth place, pursuing Colin Bond. Tony Longhurst is in third place. Dick Johnson in second. And, of course, Jim Richards continues to lead the race at this stage with 36 laps gone out of 52. And Jim doing it quite nicely, thank you, continues to open up that break on Dick Johnson. So once again, despite the fact that he didn't have pole, didn't have the front row of the grid today, Richards, and although he once again slightly missed the start, he was very quickly into gear today to overcome that deficiency, and soon reeled in Johnson once more, and really has quite a commanding lead now, about
5.5 seconds.
90 metres. Well, it's more than 90 metres then if it's 5.5 seconds.
Yep. Yes, so Richards has got things back under control once again. He will really wrap up the Australian Touring Car Championship with this performance.
You've got to say two things about both the driving of Jim Richards this season and the car. Immaculate, both. They really have been, and they've performed together that way, and that's what's put them on top of the heap in the Touring Car Championship for the first full year of Group A racing in Australia. Jim Richards is the leader at this stage of the race. Dick Johnson holding down second place, and Tony Longhurst in the 323 BMW is third.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park, the running of the Better Breaks 100, round 9 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. And, of course, Melbourne solicitor Jim Keogh in car number 20 has been a campaigner for the championship all season. He's having a few problems here today, but the reason he's staying out there is because he wants to consolidate that lead that he's built up in the STP Rookie of the Year award.
The back of it's absolutely terrible at the moment, Michael. In fact, I noticed as he went through the loop, we could see into the dashboard of the car, and he's got the oil pressure light coming on and off all the time, which means that it's surging something fiercely. So Keogh, whose best performance in the championship so far was a 6th at Simmons Plains, although not really in contention in the Touring Car Championship, of course, stands to win a lot of money in this STP award.
Encouragement award. He needs plenty of encouragement with a car handling like that.
Yes. Well, of course, STP in conjunction with the Confederation of Australian Motorsport coming up with this competition to help some of the drivers that don't figure in the prize money, some money to be able to continue on. And Jim Keogh has been picking up, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of about $500 a round. So he's been the STP big mover.
Yeah, the total prize pool for the STP award was something like $30,000, so it was a healthy injection.
Well, it was good to see from the company, and also well administered by the Confederation of Australian Motorsport.
Jim Keogh, who's done a lot of racing in all kinds of vehicles, including a fairly successful Capri sports sedan, with his hands full here at the moment with the Group A Commodore. And still, well, in fact, about 2 laps down on the leader, and would be something like around about 14th or 15th, I would say, at this stage.
Just back behind him, you can see Tim Slako of Western Australia about to have a lap put on him by Dick Johnson, but he's done very well here today.
Big performance from him back at Wanneroo with a 5th. You'll recall it was a sensational battle between Neville Crichton, Alan Jones and Tim Slako, nose to tail for lap after lap, and has given Tim the incentive that he needs to go on to Bathurst. And the car, when you look at it on paper, is perhaps the real favourable motor car at the mountain in October. Power to weight's very nice, and a very nicely engineered car. It's the ex-Andy Rouse British Touring Car Championship car.
Dick Johnson coming up on Slako at the moment. Slako hasn't had the luxury that some of the other teams have had to be able to go berserk with tyres. He's come over from the West with 1 set.
Yes, but they're a good set.
They are a good set. He's had them air freighted from England, specially built for the Rovers, which of course race very successfully in Europe, and he's got a container load on their way, but they won't be here for about another month or 6 weeks, so he's got to make do with this 1 set at the moment, both for qualifying and for the race. Under those circumstances, he's doing a good job.
Well, he's certainly had some drama getting here as well because of the airline problems that the country's experiencing. He had to fly into Canberra and took a bus to Amaroo, so that's how dedicated the man is.
When in doubt, go by bus. Ivan will take care of the tickets. They drop into the loop, and number 7, of course, is David Parsons. This car we saw at Lakeside, driven by Larry Perkins. Perkins and Brock are no longer a team. And David Parsons, the young Devonport dairy farmer, steps into the car here today.
The dealer team cars, Mike, in fact, are running 5th and 6th on the racetrack. Brock 5th, Parsons 6th.
Parsons, of course, got his run with the dealer team last year at Sandown, as you'll recall. Spent half of the race with the door opening.
And finished 2nd at that race meeting, so it was a sensational performance for him. Hasn't driven the car, or in fact any race car, for a long time. The last time that I saw him perform was up at Surfers Paradise in the Endurance Championship last year. And prior to that, it was a great performance from him at Bathurst in October, where I think he pipped Alan Jones there in the closing stages, didn't he, for 2nd place?
Well, there's an
Sorry, mate.
Interesting scrap with Parsons in number 7. And guess who's coming up behind him again?
Sandown's been a pretty handy place for the dealer team, both for Brock and, as you just mentioned, for Parsons, but they're going to have to wave the magic wand to get in the placings here this afternoon.
They had a lot of gearbox problems with this car on Friday, and they changed the box eventually. And as I said before, they broke an engine down to a lap time of 57 seconds, as you can see there by the pit board. It's his first drive at Amaroo Park this weekend, and he's acquitting himself pretty neatly. A very smooth driver. First saw him about 3 or 4 touring car seasons ago when he was running his own car, and boy, he's in strife here at the moment. The car really oversteering, but you can see just how sweetly he steers.
See right behind, once again, John Smith, still hanging in there in the little Toyota. Not that far back behind David Parsons in car number 7. John Smith in the Corolla goes down towards the lake corner. They've spread themselves out pretty well right back through the top dozen.
And Smithy's in 10th place at the moment. car number 10.
Dick Johnson still with the impossible chase after series leader Jim Richards. Well, Dick, I thought you might have been able to bone this one this afternoon after you took off so well.
Right, yeah, so did I for a while. But anyway...
You must be pretty happy, though. I mean, you've been putting together a lot of good seconds, and you've still got some goodies to come August.
Yeah, we've got a little bit to come, but hopefully that'll make us a little better off. Mainly in a straight line, Mike. The car's handling very well. I'm very happy with it.
That's what I was going to say. The only thing that really is against you is just the top-end horsepower. I mean, the car steers well. It's easy on tyres. Everything else seems fine.
Yeah, and in certain situations, like Jim's car out of this corner here, is very, very quick. Seems to have the right gearing, and this is where he passed me.
That was something you were talking about yesterday, Dick. Do you feel that gear ratios are right for this circuit?
Yeah, well, you know, you always have a little bit different gear ratios to someone else, and you know, you find that they're a little bit quicker in some places than others. And you know, I've just got good gears somewhere, and Jim's got better ones elsewhere, you know, so it's 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Looking a little bit further on to the endurance round here, that would put your car in pretty good stead, though, wouldn't it, if it's got the endurance on its side? In other words, if it can run with its tyres and suspension and brakes.
Yes, endurance, and as far as handling and tyres go, but it's also got extremely good fuel economy.
The other thing that we're noticing, Dick, is your lap times are pretty consistent, so again, that looks good for long-distance racing.
Yeah, and it's not too difficult to do. It's pretty difficult to go a little quicker and try and look after your tyres. And, you know, you know, what the hell do you do? You sort of go for broke or...
Dick, when you say it's not difficult to do, how difficult is it for you physically in this car?
Actually, it's not too bad, this thing. You know, we changed the front end a little bit from last meeting, and it's a lot lighter on the steering. That makes it better for me.
Be a lot easier than the old Group C car.
Oh, mate. Yeah, but, you know, it's a different kettle of fish, though, isn't it? You know, a lot more horsepower. You get another, like, 250 horsepower on top of this thing. And I tell you what, you got yourself a pretty quick motor car, you know.
How good do you think this car will be at, say, Amaroo Park for the 10th round next weekend through the tight and twisty bits?
Oh, we'll wait and see.
Oh, you
mate, there's a BMW behind me, so I better go.
Okay, mate, let you get on with it. Thank you very much. Dick Johnson carrying race cam again for 7 Motorsport and doing a great job pursuing Jim Richards, race leader. Tony Longhurst in the 323 BMW holding down third. There he is, in fact, holding down third place on the racetrack.
Yes, not only that, he's closing that gap, and now I know why Dick is starting to get a little bit alarmed, because the gap is 2.1 seconds, and that's something that snuck up on us.
3 laps remaining.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Dick, you might have your hands full.
Well, Michael, you were saying earlier on that you thought that Tony might have been a real chance for a third placing. It was a pretty good prediction, but it could even go far enough to be a second.
Well, the rate is closing. I'd be prepared to say with a couple of laps still to go, Longhurst's car has been very, very strong, and he throws it around here a lot of figure. I think you'll find that he'll be catching Johnson. Yes, he is.
Well, it's one thing to catch, another to pass, and there's an awful big difference in experience between the two drivers.
But I don't think really Dick Johnson, rather, is the sort of guy that's going to hold up anyone that's going any quicker. He's got problems in a few corners with tyres. And Longhurst will be here to put the pressure on him.
He closed half a second in that lap, now to 1.7 seconds. Glenn Malloy, the next man to pick off along the way in the 635 CSI BMW. So you can see there's the gap. Johnson on the right of the screen, Longhurst on the left.
Frank Gardner was saying that after next week's round, of course, they'll be pulling Tony Longhurst out to co-drive with Jim Richards. I think at this stage, he'll be having a ball driving the little car in the opening rounds of the Endurance Championship. I think this would be a great car for the Better Brakes 300 here in August.
It's going to be so easy on tyres and brakes, and I guess on the driver, that it must be a good combination in a long-distance event. And this is where the development is heading now, the BMW racing camp. They're looking at the 5-valve engine, 6-cylinder version of this for season 86.
Lap and a half remaining in the race for the leader, Jim Richards, who's about 250 metres ahead of Longhurst. Sandwiched between that pair, of course, Dick Johnson.
Now 1.2 seconds between Johnson and Longhurst. So he's pulled another half second again.
I think he might have enough to pull him in the last lap.
One lap to go.
Coming through Kamalko Wonderlic corner. Car number 62, the fellow who's put them all on the board this season. BMW Muscle Power to the fore here at Amaroo Park today. Jim Richards, qualified third, leads the race.
Still 1.2 between Johnson and Longhurst as we look at the man who's going to pick up yet another victory in the Australian Touring Car Championship. 5 pole positions, and I mentioned his results before, and will add a further 25 points to his 188 total. And it looks as though his worst performance for the series is only going to be a 5th placing, so that's not a bad performance. To the left-hander at Honda. Still the battle continues. Second and third.
I think Johnson
just clinging to it at the moment. As you can see, the gap now less than a second.
I think Johnson will hang on for second. Yep. Meanwhile, the late corner comes up for the 62, the black Bavarian machine. Oh, a little smile on Frank Gardner. And the last corner comes up, round 9, the better breaks 100 strike. Another one up to Big Jim. He's first across the line, 62. Second spot will go to Queensland's Dick Johnson, and third place will go to Tony Longhurst. A great finish that from Longhurst. And the rest of the field still coming through, but there's the man who's done it again, 62, Jim Richards. What else can you say? I think we've run out of superlatives. Confirmation of placings there. First to Jim Richards, second to Dick Johnson, and third to Tony Longhurst.
7 out of 9 rounds in the Touring Car Championship have now been won by Jim Richards in this JPS BMW. Dick Johnson, you really do feel for the guy because he has chased Richards home on so many occasions. At Lakeside again 2 weeks ago, here again today. And as he said, at the top end of the range, there's just not quite enough horsepower in the Mustang at this stage of development. But with the long-distance races to come, and you can see the jubilation there, even if Frank is hard put to crack it for a smile, the rest of the guys are pretty happy.
You don't think he offered him a bonus for the day? Don't forget next Sunday, Gary, of course, round 10 of our championship.
Yes, the Touring Car Championship for 85 winds up at Amaroo Park here in Sydney next Sunday. And, of course, you will see it on the 7 network, as you will all the big motor racing coming up towards the end of the year with the endurance race back here on August 4 and naturally with Bathurst. On behalf of Mike Raymond and Neil Crompton, I'm Gary Wilkinson. Join us again next Sunday for more 7 Motorsport.